What would you do if you heard your fiancé whisper another woman's name, your own sister's name, in your mind on your wedding night? Would you stay silent? Would you pretend you didn't hear it? Or would you burn the whole ceremony to the ground? What would you do if the only person nearby was a filthy beggar in rags, and your only weapon was your lips? Would you kiss him? Would you dare? And here's the real question, lovelies. Would you trust a man who hid a crown under his rags? A man whose eyes turned black as obsidian the moment your lips touched his? A man they called the Shadow King? Lovelies, don't forget to subscribe and follow for more tales like this, because tonight I'm taking you inside the night I kissed a beggar to ruin my wedding, and he dropped a crown that changed my entire world. My name is Isolde Knight. They called me Izzy, and this is the story of how I became a queen by accident and kept the throne on purpose. Chapter 1. The Kiss That Broke the Moon. I should have known something was wrong when the moon turned red that morning. But I was 22. I was in love, or at least I thought I was, and I was about to become Luna of the Nightshade Pack. Lord Cyprian Thorne, the man I'd loved since I was 16, was finally making me his mate. 6 years of courtship, 6 years of stolen kisses in the garden, 6 years of promises whispered under that same moon. The blood-red gown they dressed me in should have been another sign. My mother insisted on it. "Red for passion," she said, lacing me so tight I could barely breathe. "Red for the fire you'll bring to the thorn line." I looked at myself in the mirror, dark hair swept up with silver pins, eyes painted with ash and gold, lips stained crimson. I looked like something between a bride and a sacrifice. "You're stunning," my sister Leora said from the doorway. She was wearing pale blue, always pale blue, like she wanted to disappear into the sky. "Cyprian won't be able to take his eyes off you." I smiled at her, my baby sister 2 years younger and infinitely softer. "Thank you for being here, Lee. I know tonight is hard for you." She'd had a crush on Cyprian once, years ago. Everyone knew it, but she'd gotten over it, or so she said. She was dating someone from the Eastern Pack now, someone quiet and kind. "I'm happy for you," she said, and her smile looked real enough. The ceremony was held in the old temple, the one carved from volcanic rock generations ago. They'd lit it with fire, torches along every wall, candles floating in bowls of oil, a ceremonial pyre burning at the altar. The aisle itself seemed to glow, reflecting flame after flame. I walked it alone. That was tradition. The Luna walks herself to her alpha, proving she comes of her own will, not her father's command. With each step, the heat grew. With each step, my heart pounded harder. With each step, I felt the pack's eyes on me, hundreds of them, watching, judging, waiting. And then I felt it. The mind link. You see, lovelies, when you're about to mate with an alpha, the bond starts forming early. Little whispers in your head, little tugs on your consciousness. It's supposed to be romantic. His thoughts reaching for yours, your souls beginning to intertwine. I felt Cyprian's presence first, warm and familiar. I smiled under my veil, took another step, and then I heard it. Leora. His voice, his thought, her name. Not my name. Hers. I froze 3 steps from the altar. "Leora, I can see you in the crowd. God, you look beautiful in blue." The world tilted. The flames seemed to bend sideways. My vision swam. "After tonight, we'll be more careful. I promise. Just a few more hours and then—" I didn't hear the rest. The roaring in my ears drowned out everything else. The chanting, the drums, the crackling fire. What would you do, lovelies? What would you do in that moment? I looked up at Cyprian standing at the altar in his ceremonial black, his golden hair catching the firelight, his smile confident and loving, and so false. Behind him I could see Leora in the crowd, her face pale, her hands clutched together. They were sleeping together. My fiancé and my sister, and they'd planned to continue after our mating ceremony, after I'd bound myself to him for life, after I'd given him everything. The rage that filled me wasn't hot. It was cold. Arctic. The kind of cold that burns worse than fire. I reached up and tore off my veil. The crowd gasped. You're not supposed to remove it yourself. The Alpha is meant to lift it, to reveal you, to claim you as his own. But I was done with what I was supposed to do. I turned, and that's when I saw him. The beggar. He was slumped against one of the pillars near the back, hood pulled low, rags hanging off his frame. He shouldn't have been there at all. Temple guards usually cleared out the homeless before ceremonies, but somehow he'd slipped through. Or maybe he hadn't slipped through at all. I walked toward him, my red gown trailing smoke from the candles. The crowd went silent. Even the drums stopped. You, I said, my voice carrying through the temple. You there. Stand up. The beggar didn't move at first. Then slowly, he rose. He was tall. Very tall. Even stooped under those rags, I could tell he'd tower over most of the pack. Remove your hood, I commanded. He hesitated. Then, with hands wrapped in filthy bandages, he pushed back the fabric. The crowd gasped again. He was beautiful in the way broken things are beautiful. Sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass, lips that might have been soft once, but were chapped and scarred. His hair was dark, matted, falling into his eyes. But it was his eyes that held me. Gray, pale gray, like smoke or ash or shadows given form. What's your name, beggar? I asked. He said nothing. Just stared at me with those ghost-light eyes. I said, What is your name? Does it matter? His voice was rough, like he hadn't used it in months. But underneath the roughness was something else, something that made my spine straighten and my pulse quicken. It matters, I said, because I'm about to kiss you. The temple erupted. Cyprian shouted my name. My mother screamed. The pack elders started chanting prayers against madness. But I didn't care. I didn't care about any of it. I grabbed the beggar's face in both hands. His skin was cold. So cold, it should have been impossible. And I kissed him. I kissed him like I was drowning, and he was air. I kissed him like I was burning, and he was ice. I kissed him hard enough to draw blood. His lips split under the pressure, and I tasted copper and smoke and something ancient that had no name. And then his eyes changed. The gray flooded with black. Not just his pupils. Everything. Obsidian black, reflecting nothing, swallowing light. His hands came up to grip my waist, and even through the fabric I could feel the cold of him, the wrongness, the power. The moon overhead, visible through the temple's open roof, made a sound. Have you ever heard the moon make a sound, lovelies? I hope you never do. Because when the moon cries out, it sounds like glass breaking, like ice fracturing, like the end of something fundamental. There were cracks spreading across its surface. Actual cracks, black lines spiderwebbing across the red moon, and every person in that temple saw it. The beggar pulled back from the kiss, and when he smiled, his teeth were too white, too sharp. Well, he said, his voice suddenly smooth and cultured, and absolutely terrifying. That was unexpected. He stepped back, and the rags around him seemed to dissolve. Not fall away, but actually dissolve into smoke. Underneath, he wore black. All black. Leather and silk, and something that looked like liquid shadow woven into cloth. And from his sleeve, something rolled out and hit the stone floor with a sound like a bell tolling. A crown. Obsidian. Carved with symbols that hurt to look at. Radiating cold that made the nearby candles flicker and die. The beggar, who wasn't a beggar at all, bent down, picked up the crown, and turned to face the crowd. Allow me to introduce myself properly, he said, and every word carried weight, carried power, carried something that made strong wolves drop to their knees. Alpha King Ronan Ashfall, keeper of the rift, protector of the shadow roads, lord of the Eclipse Court. He turned those black eyes on me, and he smiled a smile that promised both damnation and salvation. And this lovely creature, he continued, placing one cold hand against my burning cheek. Just sealed a bond with me. Her lips signed the contract. Her blood mixed with mine. By the laws older than your pack, older than your temples, older than your precious moon, she's mine now. Cyprian finally found his voice. He'd drawn the ceremonial dagger, the one meant to cut our palms for the blood bond. You're the Shadow King. The one who what? Ronan asked pleasantly. The one who was banished? The one who was killed? The one who was supposed to stay in the rift and never, ever return? He laughed, and it sounded like wind through a graveyard. I'm all of those things and more. And now, thanks to your bride's impulsive nature, I'm back. He looked at me again, tilted his head, though I suspect impulse had less to do with it than rage. Tell me, little Luna, why did you kiss a beggar on your wedding night? I could have lied. Should have lied. But the bond he'd mentioned, I could feel it now, a black thread wrapping around my ribs, tightening with every breath, wouldn't let me. Because my fiancé was thinking about my sister while I walked toward him, I said clearly. Because they've been sleeping together behind my back. Because I wanted to ruin everything, and you were conveniently ruinable. The silence that followed was delicious. Ronan's smile widened. Oh, he said softly. Oh, I like you. Then he turned back to Cyprian, and his smile vanished. You had this goddess walking toward you, ready to bind her soul to yours, and you were thinking about someone else? He flicked his wrist. Cyprian flew backward as if yanked by invisible chains. He crashed into the ceremonial pyre, the one meant to bless our union, and the flames roared up around him. Leora screamed. Several pack members rushed forward to pull Cyprian from the fire. Ronan didn't watch. He was looking at me, only at me. What happens now? I whispered. Now, he said. Things get interesting. Chapter 2. The Beggar Who Dropped the Crown. The temple had erupted into chaos. Cyprian was alive. Unfortunately for him, his alpha healing kept him from burning too badly, but he was screaming for the guards. My mother had fainted. My father was shouting about ancient laws and treaty violations. The pack elders were chanting in the old tongue, trying to break whatever magic Ronan had used. None of it touched him. He stood in the center of the chaos like a stone in a river, letting everything flow around him, black eyes calm and cold, and faintly amused. We should probably go, he said to me conversationally, as if we were discussing the weather. Go where? I demanded. My heart was racing. The bond between us pulsed with each beat, sending waves of cold through my chest. What did you do to me? I didn't do anything, he said. You did. You kissed me. You drew my blood. You activated a contract that's been waiting for someone foolish enough, or brave enough, to claim it. What contract? He smiled that terrible smile again. The one that says whoever freely gives me their blood and breath becomes my mate, my equal, my queen. I'm not your queen. Not yet, he agreed. But you will be. Because the alternative is staying here with him. He jerked his chin toward Cyprian, who was being tended by healers, while glaring murder at both of us. Tell me, little Luna, do you really want to bind yourself to a man who dreams of your sister? I wanted to say yes out of spite. Wanted to tell this arrogant Shadow King that I'd made a mistake, that I wanted nothing to do with him, or his contracts, or his cold, cold hands. But I couldn't. Because he was right. And because, somewhere deep in the part of me that had always felt slightly wrong, slightly other, slightly too dark for this bright pack and their fire-lit temples, something was waking up. Something that recognized him. If I go with you, I said slowly, what happens? We complete the bond. I take you to the Eclipse Court. You learn what you actually are, instead of what they tried to make you. And if I stay? His expression softened slightly. Then I break the bond, walk back into the shadows, and you spend the rest of your life wondering what you missed, wondering why you never quite fit, wondering why the moon spoke to you in dreams. I stared at him. How did you know about the dreams? Because I was in them, he said simply. I've been in them since you turned 18, and the rift first recognized your bloodline. Did you think those were nightmares, little Luna? Those shadows that called your name, those voices that sang in a language you didn't know but somehow understood? He stepped closer, and the temperature dropped 10 degrees. That was me. Reaching for you, waiting for you, hoping that one day you'd be angry enough, desperate enough, wild enough to reach back. My hands were shaking. You've been watching me for 4 years? Watching over you, he corrected. There's a difference. Every time Cyprian made you cry, every time your family made you doubt yourself, every time you stood under the moon and felt like you were suffocating, I was there, in the spaces between shadows, whispering that you were worth more than this. I remembered those nights, remembered feeling something in the darkness, something that felt less like threat and more like recognition. You're insane, I said. Probably, he agreed cheerfully. But I'm also right. And you know it. Behind us, the pack was getting organized. The guards had formed a circle, armed with blessed silver and moon-touched steel. The elders had completed their chant. I could feel the temple's wards activating, ancient protections meant to keep dark things out. Or in. We need to leave, Ronan said, his voice suddenly urgent. They're trying to trap us. I can break through, but it'll hurt. Hurt them or hurt us. Both. I should have been afraid, should have been backing away, calling for help, begging Cyprian to save me from this monster in human skin. But I wasn't afraid. I was exhilarated. For the first time in my life, I felt fully awake. The bond between us thrummed with power, with possibility, with a darkness that was somehow clean and pure and mine. Okay, I said. Let's go. Ronan's eyes widened slightly, like he'd expected more argument. Then he grinned, a real grin this time, not that terrible smile, and grabbed my hand. His fingers were still cold, but now I could feel the power underneath, could feel the barely restrained strength, the ancient magic, the sheer weight of whatever he actually was. Hold tight, he said. Shadow travel isn't pleasant the first time. Shadow what? The world exploded into darkness. Have you ever been blind, lovelies? Not just in the dark, but truly blind, with nothing to see because there's nothing there to reflect light? That's what shadow travel felt like being unmade and remade in the space between one heartbeat and the next, like being scattered across the void and then pulled back together by a will stronger than existence itself. I would have screamed, but I had no mouth. I would have panicked, but I had no body to panic with. There was only the cold and the dark, and Ronan's presence holding me together like gravity. Then it stopped. We materialized, that's the only word for it, in a hallway carved from black stone. Torches burned with purple fire. The air smelled like ozone and something ancient. I collapsed against the wall, gasping, my body remembering how to have lungs and use them. Sorry, Ronan said, not sounding particularly sorry. I should have warned you. First time is always rough. Rough? I wheezed. I didn't exist. You existed. Just not in the usual way. He was examining me with those black eyes, checking for damage. No tears in your consciousness, no fractures in your soul. You're stronger than I thought. Where are we? The Eclipse Court, or specifically, the entry hall. The court proper is deeper. I pushed myself upright, trying to get my bearings. The hallway stretched in both directions, seemingly endless. The walls were carved with symbols similar to those on Ronan's crown, shifting, changing, never quite holding still enough to be read. Why did you bring me here? I asked. Because if I'd left you there, they would have killed you. I blinked. What? You bonded with me in front of the entire Nightshade Pack. You activated a treaty that their elders have been trying to prevent for 3 generations. You became something other than Luna, other than Pack, other than their carefully controlled breeding program. His voice was flat, matter of fact. They would have executed you for treason by sunrise. The words hit like physical blows. My family wouldn't. Your family sold you to Cyprian when you were 16, Ronan interrupted. Why do you think the courtship took 6 years? They were waiting for your bloodline to fully mature, waiting to see if you'd develop certain traits. When you didn't, or when you learned to hide them well enough, they decided you were safe to mate with the thorn line. My knees went weak. I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the cold stone floor. The dreams, I whispered. The ones where I could feel shadows moving when I sang. The way mirrors sometimes showed me with different eyes. The time I was angry, and all the candles in the house went out at once. Your shadow touched, Ronan said gently, kneeling beside me. Your great-grandmother was from the Eclipse Court. She fell in love with a wolf from the Nightshade Pack, and they had a daughter. That daughter had your mother, and your mother had you. Mom knows? Your mother suspects. Why do you think she insisted on red instead of the traditional white? Red hides blood better when the bond breaks wrong. Red makes it look like a tragic accident instead of an execution. I was going to be sick. But the bond didn't break, Ronan continued, because you bonded with me instead. And now you're under my protection, not theirs. I don't understand. If you knew about me, if you've been watching me, why now? Why tonight? His expression became unreadable. Because tonight was the last chance. Tomorrow, the mating bond with Cyprian would have been complete. Your bloodline would have been locked into the Nightshade Pack forever, and the shadow part of you, the part that's mine, would have withered and died. The part that's yours? I repeated. The part that belongs to the rift, he corrected. The part that was never meant to burn bright with their fire. Your eclipse, little Luna. Shadow and light together, darkness and flame balanced in perfect opposition. And you were meant to rule with me, not kneel for him. He stood, offered me his hand. But I'm not going to force you. That's not how the bond works. You kissed me of your own will. If you want to leave, I'll open a portal back to your world, and you'll never see me again. And the bond? Will hurt like hell for both of us when it breaks, he said honestly. But it can be done. I looked at his hand. Pale, cold, scarred across the knuckles like he'd been in 1,000 fights. I thought about Cyprian, about 6 years of gentle manipulation, of being molded into the perfect Luna, of smiling and nodding and never quite being enough. About hearing my sister's name in my mind, while I walked toward a future that would have destroyed me slowly, piece by piece. I thought about the moon cracking when I kissed this strange man with shadow in his eyes, and I thought about what it would feel like to finally stop pretending. I took his hand. Good, Ronan said, and pulled me to my feet. Now let's see if you can survive what comes next. Chapter 3. The Bond That Burned Black. Would you trust him, lovelies? This man who appeared in rags, who carried a crown, who could dissolve the world into shadow with a thought? Would you follow him deeper into a palace carved from darkness, toward a fate you couldn't see? I followed him. We walked through corridors that seemed to shift and change, turning left and somehow ending up going right, climbing stairs that descended, passing doors that whispered in voices almost too soft to hear. Don't listen to the doors, Ronan said without looking back. They're just memories. They can't hurt you unless you let them. Memories of what? Everyone who ever visited the Eclipse Court. Every thought they had while here. Every feeling. Every secret. The palace collects them like dust. I tried not to listen after that. But sometimes I caught fragments anyway. Loved him, loved. Never should have come here. Crown of thorns and roses bleeding. The rift knows the rift sees the rift takes. I walked faster, keeping close to Ronan. His presence seemed to quiet the whispers, like he created a bubble of silence around himself. We emerged into a massive chamber that took my breath away. It was round, carved from the same black stone, but the ceiling was open to the sky. Except it wasn't the sky I knew. This sky was different. Stars burning in colors that didn't exist in the natural world. Multiple moons hanging at impossible angles. And through it all, a great crack of silver light that pulsed like a heartbeat. "The rift," Ronan said, following my gaze. "The source of all shadow magic. The space between worlds where possibility lives. It's beautiful, isn't it?" "It's terrifying," I breathed. "That too." In the center of the chamber stood a circular platform made of glass or crystal or something that looked like frozen water. Around it, 7 thrones carved from different materials: bone, shadow, ice, fire, silver, gold, and something that looked like solidified light. "The Court of 7, Ronan explained. "Each throne represents a different aspect of the rift. Usually there's a ruler for each." "Usually? I'm the only one left," he said simply. "The others died or disappeared or went mad. It's just me now, me in the shadows." He walked to the throne carved from shadow. Of course it was shadow. What else would it be? And sat down. The throne seemed to wrap around him, recognizing its king. "Come here," he said. I approached slowly. My reflection in the crystal platform was wrong. My eyes were darker than they should be, and something like smoke curled from my hair. "Don't be afraid," Ronan said. "That's just the bond showing you what you're becoming." "And what am I becoming?" "My queen, my equal, my curse and my salvation." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, studying me with those fathomless black eyes. "But we need to complete the ritual first. The kiss started it, but there are 3 more steps." "What kind of steps?" "Blood, fire, voice." He ticked them off on his fingers. "Blood we've already done. You split my lip, remember? Fire happens next. And voice," he smiled. "Voice is where it gets interesting." "What happens during fire?" Instead of answering, he stood and moved to the center of the platform. "Come here. Stand with me." I stepped onto the crystal. It was cold under my bare feet. When had I lost my shoes? But steady. Ronan took both my hands. "The fire step is about pain," he said quietly. "The bond has to burn through your old self, burn away everything you were, to make room for what you'll become. It's going to hurt. A lot. But I'll be here the whole time. How bad is a lot? Think about the worst pain you've ever felt. Then multiply it by 1,000. I tried to pull away. I changed my mind. I want to go back." His grip tightened, not painfully, but firmly. "No, you don't. You're just afraid. And fear is normal. Fear is smart. But you're braver than your fear, Isolde Knight. I've been watching you for 4 years, remember? I know what you're made of. You don't know me. I know you cry during thunderstorms because they remind you of your grandmother dying. I know you sing when you think no one can hear because music makes the shadows dance. I know you've planned 17 different ways to escape your life, and you never took any of them because you couldn't bear to leave Leora behind." His voice was soft but relentless. "I know you, little Luna. Better than anyone in that temple ever did." Tears were streaming down my face. "That's not fair." "Nothing about this is fair," he agreed. "But it's real. And real is what you've been looking for, isn't it? Something true and solid and undeniable?" I nodded because I couldn't speak. "Then let me give you that," he said. "Let me show you what you really are." He released one of my hands and held up his free palm. A flame appeared there, but it wasn't red or orange like normal fire. It was black. Black fire that somehow gave off light, that somehow burned cold instead of hot. "This is rift fire," he explained. "It burns away lies and leaves only truth. When I press this into your chest, into the bond mark, it's going to hurt. But when it's done, you'll be free. No more pretending. No more hiding. No more being less than you are to make others comfortable. He looked at me, really looked at me, and for the first time I saw something vulnerable in those shadow eyes. I need you to trust me, he said. Just for this moment. Just for this one act of faith. Can you do that? What would you do, lovelies? Would you let him burn you? Would you believe that the pain would be worth it? I took a breath. Then another. Okay, I whispered. Do it. He moved fast. Probably knew I'd change my mind if he gave me time to think. His palm pressed against my chest, right over my heart, and the black fire poured into me. I screamed. God, I screamed like I was dying. Like I was being torn apart and remade. Like every cell in my body was being rewritten. Because that's exactly what was happening. The fire spread through my veins like liquid night. It found every lie I'd ever told, every mask I'd ever worn, every time I'd made myself smaller to fit into spaces that were never meant for me, and it burned them away. I saw my childhood, learning to dim my eyes when they glowed too bright, learning to still my hands when shadows moved toward them, learning to be quiet and small and good. I saw my teenage years, falling for Cyprian because he was safe, because he was approved, because loving him meant I didn't have to be different anymore. I saw my engagement, 6 years of shaping myself into someone else's dream, 6 years of losing pieces of who I was, 6 years of dying slowly and calling it love. And I saw what I could have become. Luna of the Nightshade Pack, mother to Cyprian's children, living in a bright house with bright curtains and slowly, inevitably, going mad from the weight of pretending. The fire burned it all away. And underneath everything I'd been taught to be, was something else. Something dark and wild and free. Something that sang to the shadows and made them dance. Something that could look at the rift and see home. The pain peaked, a moment of agony so pure I thought I'd shatter. And then suddenly, blessedly, it was over. I collapsed. Ronan caught me, lowered us both to the crystal platform, held me while I sobbed with relief and grief and the overwhelming weight of truth. "I've got you," he murmured against my hair. "I've got you. You're okay. You made it through." When I finally stopped shaking, I pulled back enough to look at him. His eyes were still black, but there was silver in them now. Silver that matched the veins of light spreading through the crack in my chest, visible through my dress where his hand had been. The bond mark. It looked like lightning frozen in skin, black and silver twisted together, pulsing with each heartbeat. "It's beautiful," I whispered. "You're beautiful," he corrected. "The mark is just proof." He helped me sit up. The world looked different now, sharper. The shadows in the corners of the chamber were moving, swaying, reaching toward me like curious children. "Can you see them?" Ronan asked. "The shadows?" "Yes." "Can you hear them?" I listened. Underneath the whisper of the doors, underneath the hum of the rift, there was music. No, not music. Singing. The shadows were singing, a melody in minor key that made my chest ache. "Yes," I said. "They're singing." Ronan's smile was radiant. "Then you're ready for the final step." Chapter 4. The public kneel in the ashes. "Wait," I said, still trying to catch my breath from the fire. "What do you mean, the final step?" I thought there were 3 steps total. Blood, fire, voice. "There are," Ronan confirmed. "But voice is complicated. We can't do it here, not in private. Voice requires witnesses. It requires the pack." "What pack?" "You said you were the only one left." "I am the only one left in the Eclipse Court," he said. "But I'm not the only shadow touched in the world. There are others, exiled, hidden, scattered across the realms. They've been waiting for centuries for someone to sit on the throne beside mine." He stood, offered me his hand again. I was getting used to that gesture, the way he always gave me a choice, even when the choice felt inevitable. "We're going back," I said. "We're going back," he confirmed. To the temple. To your pack. To everyone who tried to kill you an hour ago. That's insane. Probably. But we can't complete the bond without them. The voice step requires conflict. Requires you to claim your power in front of those who denied it. It requires you to speak your truth so loudly that no one can ignore it. He pulled me to my feet. The bond mark on my chest glowed faintly through my dress, casting silver-black light across his face. Besides, he added with that terrible smile, I owe Cyprian a conversation about what happens to men who waste goddesses. Before I could argue, the world dissolved into shadow again. This time, I was ready for it. The sensation of being unmade was still horrible, but I understood it now. I could feel Ronan holding my consciousness together, could feel the bond between us, like a rope through the darkness. We materialized outside the temple. The ceremony had been interrupted, obviously, but the pack hadn't dispersed. If anything, there were more wolves now. Word had spread. The attack by the Shadow King, the bride who kissed a beggar, the moon cracking in the sky. It was the kind of scandal that drew crowds. They'd built a bonfire in the temple courtyard. Pack members stood in circles around it, talking in low, angry voices. I could hear my name repeated over and over, always with venom. Traitor. Corrupted. Should be executed. Should burn. Ronan's hand tightened on mine. Remember what I said. You're under my protection now. They can't touch you. They look pretty eager to try. Let them, he said calmly. It'll make your moment more satisfying. We walked forward together, and the crowd noticed us immediately. The reaction was instantaneous. Warriors shifted into wolf form, civilians backed away, elders raised their hands to cast protective spells. And Cyprian stood at the head of them all, still in his ceremonial clothes, though they were singed and torn from his meeting with the pyre. His handsome face was twisted with rage. You dare come back here, he snarled. I dare many things, Ronan replied pleasantly. It's one of my few virtues. You have no claim on Isolde. The mating bond was initiated by me, approved by the pack elders, blessed by the moon. The moon that cracked when she kissed me, Ronan interrupted. That moon? The one currently hanging in pieces in your sky? That blessed, approving moon? Cyprian's face went red. You used dark magic. You corrupted her? I corrupted her? Ronan laughed, and the sound made wolves whimper. Tell me, Lord Cyprian, what were you thinking about while your bride walked down the aisle? What name was in your mind when you should have been thinking only of her? Cyprian's mouth snapped shut. That's what I thought, Ronan said. But please, continue telling me about corruption. I'm fascinated. This was when my mother pushed through the crowd. She looked smaller than I remembered, frailer, her ceremonial robes hanging wrong on her frame. Isolde, she said, and her voice cracked. Baby, please, come home. We can fix this. The elders know a ritual. To kill me, I asked quietly. She flinched. To save you. To remove the corruption. To bring you back to us. I'm not corrupted, Mother, I said. The words came easier than I expected, flowing from some deep place that the fire had unlocked. I'm finally uncorrupted. Finally clean of all the lies you fed me since I was a child. We only wanted to protect you. You wanted to control me, I corrected. There's a difference. You knew what I was. You knew about grandmother. And you spent my entire life trying to burn it out of me, trying to make me into something safe and small and manageable. I stepped forward, away from Ronan, standing on my own. The bond mark pulsed with each word, giving me strength. But I was never meant to be small. I was never meant to kneel. And I'm done pretending. The crowd rippled with shock. Several pack members shifted nervously, looking to the elders for guidance. One of them, Elder Thorn, Cyprian's grandmother, stepped forward. She was ancient, her hair white as bone, her eyes milky with age, but still sharp with intelligence. "You speak boldly for a girl who broke sacred vows," she said, her voice carrying across the courtyard. "You speak boldly for someone who threw away pack, family, and honor for a kiss with darkness." "I speak boldly because I'm finally telling the truth," I shot back. "Something this pack hasn't heard in generations. When did you become so afraid of shadow? When did you decide that anything other than fire and light must be evil?" "Since the Rift Wars," Elder Thorn said coldly. "Since the Shadow King's armies nearly destroyed every pack in the realm. Since we learned that darkness only brings death." "I never brought death," Ronan said, his voice gone cold and dangerous. "I brought balance. Your ancestors invited shadow into their lands because their fire was burning too hot, consuming everything, leaving only ash. I taught them temperature, taught them control, taught them that light without darkness is just as destructive as darkness without light." "And then you demanded tribute," Elder Thorn countered. "You took our daughters, our sons." "I took volunteers," Ronan corrected sharply. "Shadow-touched children your packs were going to kill. Children whose gifts frightened you, who didn't fit your bright and burning mold. I gave them sanctuary. I gave them training. I gave them a place where they didn't have to apologize for existing. You gave them corruption. I gave them the truth." His voice cracked like thunder, and every torch in the courtyard flickered. "And when your packs realized your children were happy in my court, when you realized they didn't want to come back to your judgment and your fear, you declared war. You called it the Rift Wars, made yourselves the heroes, but it was always about control, about making sure no one had a choice outside your carefully constructed boxes." The crowd was silent now, hanging on every word. "And now," Ronan continued, his black eyes sweeping across them all, "decades later, you're doing it again. You tried to force this brilliant, powerful woman into a mating bond with a man who doesn't love her, who was using her as a broodmare while sleeping with her sister." Gasps erupted. Several pack members turned to stare at Leora, who was half hidden in the crowd, her face pale as death. "Yes," I said, my voice steady despite the pain in my chest. "It's true. Cyprian and Leora have been together for months, maybe longer. I heard his thoughts during the ceremony. I heard him thinking about her while I walked toward him." "That's a lie," Cyprian shouted. "She's trying to justify her betrayal." "Is it a lie, Leora?" I called out, finding my sister in the crowd. "Is it?" She was crying, tears streaming down her pale face. For a moment, I thought she wouldn't answer. Thought she'd protect Cyprian, protect herself, let me burn alone. But then she spoke. "No," she whispered. "It's not a lie. I'm sorry, Izzy. I'm so sorry. It started 2 years ago, and we tried to stop. We did, but..." Her voice broke. "I loved him first. Before you. And he loved me. But you were the firstborn. You were the one with the stronger bloodline. And Mother said you had to be Luna, not me." The crowd erupted into chaos. My mother was screaming at Leora. Cyprian was trying to shout over everyone. Pack members were arguing with each other, some defending me, others calling for my execution anyway. And through it all, Elder Thorn stood silent, watching me with those milky eyes. "You knew," I said to her. "You knew about them. You approved the match anyway. The pack needed your bloodline," she said simply. "Personal happiness is irrelevant compared to the pack's survival." "Is that what you told grandmother when you exiled her?" I asked. "When she fell in love with a shadow-touched man and you cast her out? Is that what you told her when she begged to see her daughter, my mother, one last time?" Elder Thorn's expression didn't change. "Your grandmother made her choice, as you've made yours." "Yes," I agreed. "I have." I turned to Ronan, and in front of the entire Nightshade pack, in front of everyone who'd ever tried to make me less than I was, I knelt. Not in submission, in choice. "Alpha King Ronan Ashfall," I said clearly, "I accept your bond. I accept your crown. I accept your darkness and your court and everything you offer, not because I have to, but because I want to. Because you've shown me more truth in one night than this pack has shown me in 22 years. Ronan's eyes widened slightly. He hadn't expected this, I realized. Hadn't expected me to kneel, to claim him publicly, to burn every bridge with such finality. Then he smiled. Not the terrible smile, but a real one, soft and surprised, and almost boyish. He knelt too, in the ashes of the courtyard, in front of everyone. He pulled something from his pocket, the obsidian cuff that had been part of his beggar's disguise. "Isolde Knight," he said, and his voice was gentle now, intimate, meant for me even though hundreds could hear. "You are the only person in 300 years to look at me and see something worth choosing. You are brave and wild and true. You are shadow and flame perfectly balanced. You are everything I didn't know I was searching for." He held up the cuff. "Wear my shadow. Be my ruin, or my queen, or anything in between. Just be mine." I held out my wrist, and he fastened the obsidian cuff around it. The moment the metal touched my skin, it warmed. Not hot like fire, but warm like body heat, like something alive. The bond mark on my chest blazed with silver-black light, and the cracked moon overhead, the one that had been hanging in pieces since our kiss, suddenly reassembled itself. Not perfectly. The cracks were still visible, lines of shadow spreading across its surface like veins. But it was whole again. Different. Changed. But whole. The pack stared upward in shock. "The moon accepts the bond," Elder Thorn said, her voice hollow with disbelief. "The moon accepts?" "Of course it does," Ronan said, standing and pulling me up with him. "Because she's not just shadow-touched. She's eclipse-born. Shadow and light in perfect balance. And the moon knows its own." He turned to face the pack, and there was triumph in his expression now. "Your ancestors made a treaty with the Eclipse Court during the Rift Wars," he said. "A treaty that stated any shadow-touched child born to your packs could choose. Pack or court, fire or darkness, your way or mine. You've been violating that treaty for decades, hiding your shadow-touched, killing them, pretending they don't exist." He gestured to me. "But Isolde is proof you can't hide the truth forever. And her choice, made freely, witnessed by the moon itself, means the treaty is active again." "That's impossible," Cyprian said. "The treaty ended with the wars." "The treaty ends when there are no more shadow-touched children being born," Ronan corrected. "And you know as well as I do that there are still children in this pack who see shadows move, who hear songs in the dark, who don't quite fit your fire-bright mold. I can smell them from here." Several parents in the crowd shifted nervously, hands tightening on their children's shoulders. "They have a choice now," Ronan continued. "Stay and be taught to hate themselves, or come with us and learn what they actually are. No force, no coercion, just choice." He looked at Elder Thorn. "That was always the treaty. That was always what your ancestors agreed to. And if you violate it now, after the moon has accepted this bond, you'll be the ones breaking sacred law. Not us." The silence stretched. Finally, Elder Thorn nodded once, sharp and grudging. "The treaty stands. Any shadow-touched child who wishes to leave may do so without consequence." "And Isolde?" Ronan asked. "Is no longer pack," the elder said coldly. "She made her choice." "She lives with it." The words should have hurt. Should have felt like exile, like loss, like grief. But all I felt was relief. "Thank you," I said quietly. And I meant it. Chapter 5. The Collar That Counted Heartbeats. We didn't leave immediately. That surprised me. I'd expected Ronan to dissolve us back into shadow the moment Elder Thorn acknowledged the treaty. But he seemed in no hurry, standing in the courtyard with his hands still wrapped around mine, watching the pack with those fathomless black eyes. "What are we waiting for?" I whispered. "Them," he said simply. "Them who?" He nodded toward the crowd. "The children. The shadow touched. They need time to decide. Time to say goodbye if they're coming with us. We owe them that. It started slowly. A girl, maybe 14, with dark hair and darker eyes, stepped forward from the crowd. Her mother tried to hold her back, but she shook free. I want to go, she said, her voice shaking but determined. I want to learn, please. Ronan smiled at her, the gentle smile, not the terrible one. What's your name? Mira. Well, Mira, welcome to the Eclipse Court. We're glad to have you. After Mira, others came. A boy who couldn't have been more than 10, who said the shadows sang him to sleep every night. Twin girls who could make candles flicker just by thinking about it. A young man, maybe 19, who'd been hiding his gifts for years, who looked at me with desperate hope. One by one, they stepped forward. 12 in total. 12 shadow-touched children that the Nightshade Pack would have killed, or broken, or taught to hate themselves. Their families reacted differently. Some cried, but let them go. Others shouted and threatened. One father tried to physically drag his son back, and Ronan intervened. Not violently, just a hand on the man's shoulder, and a quiet, he made his choice. The hardest was Mira's mother. She held her daughter for a long time, sobbing into her hair, begging her to stay. I can't, Mama, Mira said through her own tears. I can't keep pretending. It hurts too much. But I love you. I know. But you love who you want me to be, not who I am. There's a difference. God, that hit close to home. When all 12 had gathered near us, Ronan addressed the pack one final time. We'll take care of them, he said. They'll be trained, educated, given choices you never allowed them. And if any of them want to visit, want to maintain contact with their families, we'll facilitate it. This isn't exile. It's sanctuary. This is theft, Cyprian spat. You're stealing our... Our what? I interrupted. Your property? Your resources? Your carefully planned breeding stock? I stepped forward, anger burning hot in my chest. These are people, Cyprian. Children. They're not tools for your pack's advancement. Says the woman who betrayed everything for a kiss, he sneered. I betrayed nothing that was worth keeping, I shot back. I walked away from lies and found truth. I left betrayal and found loyalty. I rejected a man who wanted to own me and chose one who wants to know me. If that's betrayal, then I'm glad I'm a traitor. For a moment I thought he might attack. His wolf was close to the surface. I could see it in the amber glow of his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. But then Leora stepped forward, putting herself between us. Stop, she said quietly. Just stop. This is my fault too. Maybe more mine than anyone's. I should have told the truth years ago. I should have admitted I loved you. Should have fought for what I wanted instead of hiding and hoping. She looked at me, and for the first time in months, I saw my real sister, not the shy, perfect girl our parents had made her, but the complicated, hurting person underneath. I'm sorry, Izzy, she said. I'm so sorry. I was weak and selfish, and I hurt you terribly. And I know you probably hate me, and you have every right, but... Her voice cracked. I hope you're happy. With him, in the shadows. I hope you find everything there that we couldn't give you here. It wasn't enough. Wouldn't ever be enough to undo the betrayal, the months of lies, the humiliation of hearing Cyprian think her name on what should have been my wedding night. But it was something. I don't hate you, I said finally. I hate what you did. But you're still my sister. And maybe someday, when this isn't so raw, we can talk. Really talk. Not as pack members or political pieces, but as sisters. She nodded, tears streaming freely now. I turned away before I could change my mind, before the complicated mess of love and hurt and history could trap me again. We're ready, I said to Ronan. He surveyed our little group, 12 terrified, excited, hopeful children, and me. Then let's go home. This time, I knew what to expect when the shadows rose. I held tight to Ronan's hand, felt the bond between us like an anchor, and let the darkness unmake me. The children screamed. I remembered that feeling, wanted to comfort them, but had no voice in the void to offer reassurance. Then we were through. The Eclipse Court's entry hall looked different with people in it. Less empty, less haunted. The purple torches seemed to burn brighter, welcoming. The children were on the ground, gasping and crying and clinging to each other. "First time is rough," Ronan said apologetically. "It gets easier. Eventually, you'll barely notice it." "That's what you said to me," I pointed out. And was I wrong? Actually, no. The third shadow travel had been significantly less traumatic than the first. He helped the children up, spoke to each one quietly, learned their names and their gifts and their fears. He was good with them, I realized. Patient and kind in a way I hadn't expected from someone called the Shadow King. "Isolde," he said finally, turning to me. "I need to get them settled, assign them rooms, introduce them to the court staff. It'll take a few hours. Can you—" "I'll be fine," I assured him. "I'll explore. Learn the layout. Don't go into the East Wing," he said quickly. "That's where the rift is thinnest, and it's not safe without training. Stay in the main palace." "Okay." He studied me for a moment like he was trying to decide something. Then he stepped close and pressed his cold hand to my cheek. "You were magnificent back there," he said softly. "The way you stood up to them, claimed your truth, chose your path. I've never seen anything braver." "I was terrified," I admitted. "Bravery isn't the absence of fear," he said. "It's doing what's right, despite the fear. And you did. You saved those children just by being yourself, by showing them it's possible to choose differently." He kissed my forehead, quick and chaste, and somehow more intimate than anything else we'd done. "Explore. Rest. We'll talk more tonight, after everyone's settled." Then he was gone, herding the children deeper into the palace, leaving me alone in the entry hall. I stood there for a moment, letting the reality of it all sink in. I'd left my pack, my family, everything I'd known for 22 years. I'd bonded with a man I barely knew, in a court I didn't understand, surrounded by magic that terrified me. I should have been panicking, should have been regretting, questioning, doubting. But I wasn't. Because for the first time in my entire life, I felt like I could breathe. I started walking, exploring the palace Ronan had said would be my home. The corridors were easier to navigate now. Either I was learning their logic or they were adjusting to me. Probably both. I found libraries filled with books in languages I didn't know. Training rooms with weapons made of shadow and moonlight. Gardens where plants grew without sunlight, fed by the rift's strange energy. And everywhere, shadows. Moving, watching, singing their wordless songs. I stopped in one of the gardens, if you could call it that, more like a courtyard of black glass and silver trees, and sat on a bench carved from obsidian. The bond mark on my chest pulsed steadily. I could feel Ronan through it, sense his location in the palace, feel his emotions like distant echoes. Right now he was content, focused, patient. I wondered if he could feel me too. If he knew I was sitting here, marveling at trees that grew downward instead of up, at flowers that bloomed in shades of gray and silver and midnight blue. "You can hear them, can't you?" I spun around. A woman stood behind me, appearing from nowhere. She was old, ancient really, with skin like wrinkled paper and eyes that glowed faint purple. "I'm sorry," I said quickly. "I didn't realize anyone was here." Ronan said I could explore. "Peace, child," she said, sitting beside me on the bench. "I'm not questioning your presence. I'm simply observing. You can hear the shadows singing. Yes?" "Yes," I admitted. "Is that normal? For Eclipseborn?" "Very. For most shadow-touched?" "No." She studied me with those glowing eyes. "You're stronger than the last one." "The last one?" "The last woman Ronan tried to bond with. 30 years ago, before the wars. She was shadow-touched too, but only barely. The fire step broke her mind. The old woman said it matter-of-factly, like she was discussing the weather. She died screaming, and Ronan swore he'd never attempt the bond again. My blood ran cold. He didn't mention that. Would you have let him try if he had? She had a point. What's your name? Called many things over the years. You may call me Grandmother Ash. I was the court's healer, before there was a court to heal. Now I simply tend the gardens and watch. Watch for what? For the one who would finally survive the fire. For the one who would stand beside our king instead of burning in his shadow. She reached out and touched my bond mark through my dress. Her fingers were cold, but not unpleasantly so. You're the one. I wondered if you'd ever appear. I didn't ask for this, I said quietly. None of us ask for our fates, child. But we can choose how we meet them. You chose bravely. Now you must choose wisely. She stood, moving with surprising grace for someone so old. The court will challenge you. Not out of malice, but out of need. We've been without a queen for so long, we've forgotten how to be whole. You'll have to teach us. Teach him. I don't know how to be a queen. Neither did he know how to be a king once. But he learned. So will you. She started to walk away, then paused. Oh, and child? Don't go into the East Wing, no matter how much the rift calls to you. You're not ready for what waits there. Not yet. Then she was gone, dissolving into shadow like she'd never existed. I sat alone in the garden for a long time after that, thinking about fire and bonds and women who died screaming, thinking about the choice I'd made and whether I'd survive it. Chapter 6. The Catacomb That Breathed Shadow. Would you explore, lovelies? If you were in a palace of shadows, with warnings about dangerous wings and gardens that grew downward, would you stay where you were told? Would you be obedient? Or would curiosity eat at you until you had to know? I lasted 3 hours. 3 hours of exploring the safe areas, of reading books whose words shifted on the page, of watching shadows dance to music only they could hear. 3 hours before I found myself standing at the entrance to the East Wing, staring at double doors carved from black stone and sealed with chains of silver light. I could feel the rift beyond them, feel it calling, pulling, singing in harmonics that made my teeth ache and my blood burn. The bond mark on my chest pulsed in time with the call. Don't, I told myself. Ronan said it wasn't safe. Grandmother Ash said you weren't ready. But my hand was already reaching for the chains. The moment my fingers touched the silver light, it shattered. The chains fell away like they'd never existed, and the doors swung open on silent hinges. Beyond was darkness. Not the comfortable darkness of shadows, but something deeper, heavier. A darkness that felt old and hungry and aware. I should have turned back, should have run to find Ronan, should have sealed the doors and pretended I'd never been here. Instead, I walked forward. The corridor beyond was different from the rest of the palace. No purple torches, no whispers from doors, no singing shadows. Just silence and darkness and the sound of my own heartbeat. And underneath it all, another sound. Breathing. The corridor itself was breathing. In and out, the walls expanding and contracting like lungs. With each exhale, ash fell from the ceiling. With each inhale, the shadows pulled tighter, pressing close. I kept walking. The passage opened into a catacomb, rows of alcoves carved into the walls, each one holding a stone sarcophagus. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, stretching back into darkness I couldn't penetrate. Names were carved into the stone. I read them as I passed. Lydia Moonweaver, Eclipseborn, died in the Rift Wars. Marcus Shadowsong, Eclipseborn, died in service Cassandra Nightwhisper. Eclipseborn, died screaming. That last one made me stop. Died screaming. Was this the woman Grandmother Ash had mentioned? The one Ronan had tried to bond with? I moved closer, reading the smaller text beneath her name. Bonded with King Ronan. Ashfall survived blood, failed fire, forgiven in death. Forgiven for what? For not being strong enough? For dying? You shouldn't be here. I spun around. Ronan stood at the catacomb's entrance, backlit by the purple torches from the main corridor. His face was unreadable, his black eyes reflecting nothing. I'm sorry, I said automatically. I know you said not to come, but I felt the rift calling and, it's always calling, he interrupted, walking toward me. That's what makes it dangerous. The rift wants things, power, life, souls to fuel its existence. It'll promise you anything to get you close enough to take. He stopped beside Cassandra's sarcophagus, placed one hand on the stone. She heard it too, he said softly. The calling. She was so sure she could handle it, so certain she was strong enough. She made it through the blood step perfectly. But when the fire came, he closed his eyes. She burned from the inside out. I held her while she died, listened to her scream my name, felt the bond tear itself apart. It took me 10 years to stop hearing those screams. I'm sorry, I whispered. I should have told you, he admitted. Should have warned you properly about what the bond could do. But I was selfish. I felt you that night in the temple, felt how strong you were, and I wanted... He broke off, shook his head. I wanted so badly for you to be the one that I didn't stop to think about what it would cost you if you weren't. I stepped closer to him. I survived the fire. You did. But that doesn't mean you're safe. He turned to face me fully. The rift wants you, Isolde. Wants what you are, Eclipse born, perfectly balanced between shadow and light. If it could consume you, it would become stronger than it's been in centuries. Strong enough to break containment, to spread beyond the court, to swallow the world in darkness. Then why keep it here? Why not destroy it? Because it can't be destroyed, he said. The rift is the source of all shadow magic. Destroying it would kill every shadow-touched person in existence, including you, including me, including those 12 children we just saved. The best we can do is contain it, control it, keep it from spreading. He gestured around the catacomb. Everyone here died trying to do that. Died fighting the rift's influence, or died trying to close breaches, or died like Cassandra, trying to bond with me so we'd be strong enough together to keep the darkness at bay. You've been doing this alone, I realized. For how long? 30 years since Cassandra. 60 years since the last of the other throne holders died or fled. I'm the only one left because I'm too stubborn to die and too guilty to run. The weight in his voice was crushing. 60 years alone, holding back an ancient force that wanted to devour everything, watching everyone he tried to bond with die or break or leave. You said the bond makes us equals, I said carefully. That completing all 3 steps would make me your queen, your partner. Does that mean I'd help you fight the rift? Yes. Does it mean I'd be strong enough to fight the rift? He hesitated. I think so. Hope so. But Isolde, I can't guarantee it. I can't promise you won't end up in one of these alcoves with your name carved in stone and died screaming underneath it. What's the 3rd step? I asked. Voice. What does that actually mean? It means singing to the rift, he said bluntly. Using your voice, your shadow-touched, eclipse-born voice, to command it, to shape it, to tell it no. If you're strong enough, if your bloodline is pure enough, if the balance in you is perfect enough, the rift will listen. It'll recognize you as its equal, not its food. And if I'm not strong enough, then it swallows you. And I'll spend the next century trying to pull you back out, failing, and eventually joining you in the darkness. The casual way he said it, like sacrificing himself to save me, was just an obvious fact, made my chest ache. You can't promise that, I said. I can promise I'll try. That's all anyone can promise. I looked around the catacomb again at all these names, all these people who'd died fighting, or fled, or broken under the weight of shadow. And I thought about those 12 children, sleeping safely in their rooms right now, dreaming of a future where they didn't have to hide. I thought about Mira telling her mother, I can't keep pretending. It hurts too much. I thought about myself, 22 years of making myself smaller, quieter, less, until I'd almost forgotten what my real voice sounded like. When do we do the third step? I asked. Ronan's eyes widened. You're sure? You don't need time to think. I've been thinking my entire life, I interrupted. Thinking about who I should be, what I should want, how I should act. I'm done thinking. Let's do this. Isolde, you've been alone for 60 years, I said firmly. Holding back the darkness by yourself, watching people die, carrying guilt that isn't yours to carry. I can't promise I won't die screaming like Cassandra, but I can promise I'm going to try. And if I do die, at least you won't be alone while it happens. For the first time since I'd met him, Ronan looked uncertain, vulnerable, almost afraid. I can't lose you, he said quietly. Not now. Not after finally finding someone who sees me as something other than a monster, or a king, or a tragedy. I took his cold hands in mine. Then don't let me fall. That's what the bond is for, right? We hold each other up. He pulled me close, pressed his forehead to mine. You're insane. Probably. But so are you. So we match. He laughed, a real laugh, startled and genuine and beautiful. Okay, he said finally. Okay, we'll do the voice step, but not here. Not in the catacombs. We do it in the throne room, with the proper protections in place, with Grandmother Ash and the other court members as witnesses. There are other court members? A few. They mostly stay in the lower levels, maintaining the wards, keeping the palace running. They'll need to meet their new queen anyway. I'm not queen yet. No, he agreed. But you will be. I can feel it. He kissed me then, not the desperate blood-drawing kiss from the temple, but something softer, slower. A kiss that tasted like promise and hope, and carefully controlled terror. When he pulled back, his eyes had returned to gray. Just for a moment, just between us, the shadows receded enough to show me the man underneath the king. Come on, he said, lacing his fingers through mine. Let's go meet your future subjects. They're going to love you. Or they'll think I'm a disaster waiting to happen. That too, he admitted cheerfully. But they'll love you anyway. Trust me, we walked out of the catacomb together, leaving the names and the warnings, and the woman who died screaming behind us. But I felt her presence following, not haunting, but witnessing. Like she was waiting to see if I'd succeed where she'd failed. Like she was hoping I would. Chapter 7. The Betrayal That Broke the Veil. Ronan took me deeper into the palace than I'd gone before, down staircases that spiraled into darkness, through corridors that hummed with power. How big is this place? I asked, slightly breathless from all the stairs. Big enough, he said unhelpfully. The Eclipse Court exists partially in this realm, and partially in the space between realms. So its size is flexible. That's not ominous at all. He grinned over his shoulder. You get used to it. We emerged into a vast underground chamber that made the throne room upstairs look small. The ceiling was so far above us I couldn't see it, lost in shadows and purple light. And filling the space, everywhere, covering every surface, were gardens. But not like any gardens I'd ever seen. These plants were made of shadow and light woven together. Trees with bark that looked like frozen midnight, leaves that glowed faint silver. Flowers that opened and closed in patterns that might have been breathing or might have been singing. Vines that reached toward me as I passed, curious but not threatening. And everywhere, people. Shadow-touched court members, going about their work, tending the gardens, maintaining crystal structures that must have been some kind of ward system, training in combat in an open area off to the left. They all stopped when they saw Ronan, and they all stared when they saw me. Everyone, Ronan called out, his voice carrying through the chamber. I'd like you to meet Isolde Knight. Eclipse-born, bond-bearer, and if the voice step goes well tomorrow, your queen. The silence was deafening. Then, from somewhere in the back, someone started clapping. Slowly at first, then others joined in, until the entire chamber was applauding. I stood there, completely overwhelmed, as dozens of shadow-touched people welcomed me home. A young woman approached first, maybe mid-20s, with silver hair and eyes that shifted between gray and lavender. "Welcome, Lady Knight. I'm Sarah, head of the ward keepers. If you need anything at all, please don't hesitate to ask." "Thank you," I managed. "And please, just Isolde." "Isolde, then." She smiled warmly. "We're glad you're here. It's been too long since the court had balance." Others came forward to introduce themselves. I met Torin, who managed the gardens and spoke in a low, rumbling voice that made the plants nearby sway. Kess and Leah, twin warriors who trained new shadow-touched in combat. Marcus, an ancient man who maintained the library and claimed to have been alive during the Rift Wars. "You look like your grandmother," he said, studying me with clouded eyes. "Alara Moonweaver. She was magnificent. Powerful. The pack never deserved her." "You knew her?" "Everyone here knew her," he said. "She was Eclipseborn too, one of the strongest we'd ever seen. When she chose to leave the court for love, we thought we'd lost our chance at balance forever. But bloodlines run true. Here you are." The weight of legacy settled on my shoulders. I wasn't just bonding with Ronan. I was fulfilling something my grandmother had left unfinished. Ronan must have sensed my anxiety because he stepped closer, his hand finding mine. "That's enough for tonight," he announced to the room. "Isolde needs rest. Tomorrow is the voice step, and she needs to be at full strength." "The voice step!" Sarah's eyes widened. "Already?" But she only just survived fire. "She's ready," Ronan said with absolute certainty. I wasn't sure I shared his confidence, but I squeezed his hand in silent thanks anyway. He led me away from the gardens, back through the winding corridors, up countless stairs. We emerged in a section of the palace I hadn't seen yet, quieter, more intimate. "The royal quarters," he explained, stopping before a set of double doors carved with intricate patterns of moons and shadows. "Your room is through here. Mine is across the hall." "Separate rooms?" I asked, oddly disappointed. His lips quirked. "We're bonded, not mated. Not yet. The voice step completes the bond, but the actual mating." He trailed off, looking uncharacteristically shy. "That's your choice. Your timeline. I won't pressure you." Something warm bloomed in my chest. After years with Cyprian, who'd always been pushing for more, faster, sooner, having someone offer patience felt revolutionary. "Thank you," I said softly. He opened the door to my room, and I gasped. It was beautiful. Not in a bright, overwhelming way, but in a way that felt like coming home. The walls were dark stone, but warm somehow, covered in tapestries woven from shadow and silver thread. A massive bed dominated one side, draped in fabric that looked like captured starlight. Windows, though they couldn't possibly be real windows this deep in the palace, showed a night sky full of unfamiliar constellations. And everywhere, candles. Hundreds of them, floating in mid-air, casting gentle purple-silver light. "It's perfect," I breathed. "I had them prepare it while we were in the gardens," Ronan admitted. "I know it's been a long day. Long night, really. You should rest." He started to leave, but I caught his hand. "Stay?" The word came out before I could think better of it. "Just for a little while? I don't want to be alone yet." Something in his expression softened. "Of course." We sat on the edge of the bed, carefully, properly, with space between us. Like awkward teenagers instead of bonded mates who'd kissed in front of hundreds and survived magical fire together. "Can I ask you something?" I said after a moment. "Anything? Why me?" "I know you said you felt me in the temple, felt how strong I was. But you've been searching for 60 years. You must have encountered other shadow-touched women, other potential bonds. What made you choose tonight?" "Choose me?" He was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. "I wasn't in that temple by accident," he said finally. "I'd been watching you for months, waiting for the right moment. I knew about Cyprian's betrayal. I could smell Leora's scent on him every time he touched you, could see the guilt in her eyes when she looked at you. I knew the mating ceremony would break you or free you. So you were just waiting?" "I was hoping," he corrected, "hoping you'd be strong enough to walk away. Hoping you'd be angry enough to break their rules. Hoping you'd see through the lies and choose truth, even if that truth looked like a beggar in rags." He finally looked at me, and his gray eyes were achingly vulnerable. "I've been alone for so long," he whispered, "carrying the weight of the rift, watching the court slowly die, knowing I was failing everyone who'd ever depended on me. And then I felt you, this brilliant, burning, perfectly balanced soul, trapped in a life that was suffocating her. And I thought, maybe if I could save you, you could save me too." My throat was tight with tears. "That's a lot of pressure." "I know, and I'm sorry. You shouldn't have to save anyone. You should get to just be. But I'm selfish, Isolde. I'm desperate. And when you kissed me in that temple, when you chose darkness over fire, chose truth over comfort," his voice cracked, "I've never felt anything more right in 300 years of existence." 300? I squeaked. He winced. "Did I not mention that?" "You absolutely did not mention that." "I'm shadow-born," he said apologetically. "We age differently." I was 29 when I stopped counting, but that was a while ago. I stared at him, trying to process. 300 years. He'd been alive for 300 years, been alone for 60 of them, been fighting the rift and watching people die and carrying guilt that would have crushed anyone else. And he'd chosen me. Not because I was perfect or powerful or fully trained, but because I was angry enough to kiss a beggar and brave enough to follow him into darkness. "I can't save you," I said finally. "I'm 22 years old. I barely understand my own gifts, and I'm terrified of what tomorrow brings. I can't be your savior, Ronan." His face fell, and I saw the moment he started to pull away, to put distance between us. I grabbed his hand before he could. "But," I continued, "I can stand beside you. I can learn. I can try. I can be your partner instead of your salvation, if that's enough." He stared at me like I'd just offered him the world. "That's more than enough," he said hoarsely. "That's everything." Then he kissed me again, slow and deep and full of promise. Not the desperate kiss from the temple, or the gentle one in the catacomb, but something new. Something that tasted like partnership and possibility, and two broken people trying to build something whole. When we broke apart, I was breathless. "You should rest," he said, but he didn't move away. "You should stay," I countered. "Isolde, I'm not asking for anything more than presence," I said. "I just don't want to sleep alone tonight." "Not after everything." He studied my face, searching for certainty. Whatever he found must have satisfied him because he nodded. "Okay, but I'm staying on top of the covers, fully dressed, and if you change your mind, I won't." He kicked off his boots and settled beside me, lying back against the pillows. I curled into his side, resting my head on his chest. He was cold, as always. But underneath the cold was something else, a steady heartbeat, surprisingly strong. It shouldn't have been comforting, but it was. "Tell me about the voice step," I said quietly. "What happens? What do I need to do?" His hand came up to stroke my hair, the gesture automatic and soothing. "Tomorrow we go to the throne room. The entire court will be there, everyone you met tonight, plus the 12 children we brought from your pack. We'll stand before the rift's gate, a doorway into the deepest part of the darkness." "That sounds terrible." "It is," he agreed. "The rift will try to overwhelm you, try to make you forget who you are, try to consume you like it's consumed so many others. But you have something they didn't." "What?" "Me. The bond between us. When you start to sing, when you use your voice to command the darkness, I'll be there in your mind, holding you steady, keeping you anchored. You won't face it alone. What if I can't sing? I asked, voicing my deepest fear. What if the rift is too strong, or I'm too weak, or I just freeze? Then we try again, he said simply, and again, until either you succeed or you tell me to stop. I won't force you into this, Isolde. The moment you want out, we're out. Even if that means you stay alone? Even then. I lifted my head to look at him. You're too noble for your own good. Or too selfish, he countered. Because I'd rather have you alive and happy somewhere else than dead and bound to me. I kissed his cheek, his jaw, the corner of his mouth. Tomorrow, I said. Tomorrow I'll sing to the darkness. And we'll see what happens. Tomorrow, he agreed. I settled back against his chest, listening to that impossible heartbeat, feeling the bond between us pulse with each breath. And despite everything, the danger, the fear, the weight of expectation, I felt safe. For the first time in 22 years, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. Chapter 8. The Voice That Eclipsed the Moon. I woke to purple light streaming through the knot windows, and Ronan gone. For a moment, panic seized me. Had he changed his mind? Decided I wasn't worth the risk? Left me here alone, in a palace of shadows? Then I saw the note on the pillow beside me, written in elegant script. Went to prepare the throne room. Grandmother Ash will bring you breakfast and help you dress. The voice step begins at moonrise. R*P*S. You snore. It's adorable. I crumpled the note, face burning. I did not snore. Probably. A knock at the door interrupted my embarrassment. Grandmother Ash entered without waiting for permission, carrying a tray that smelled like heaven. Breakfast, she announced, setting it on a table near the window. Eat. You'll need your strength. I examined the food, fruits I didn't recognize, bread that looked black but tasted like honey, tea that steamed with purple smoke. Everything was strange, but somehow my body knew it was right. The shadow-touched part of me recognized this as proper fuel. You're nervous, Grandmother Ash observed, settling into a chair across from me. I'm terrified, I corrected. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. She poured herself tea with steady hands. Cassandra wasn't afraid. That's why she failed. I set down my fork. Tell me about her. Everyone keeps mentioning her, but no one will actually explain what happened. Grandmother Ash was quiet for a long moment, steam from her tea curling around her face like smoke. Cassandra was brilliant, she said finally. Shadow-touched from birth, trained from childhood, absolutely certain of her place in the world. When Ronan chose her for the bond, she saw it as confirmation. Of course the king would choose her. She was obviously the strongest, the best, the most deserving. That doesn't sound so bad. Pride isn't bad, Grandmother Ash agreed. Until it makes you deaf to warning. We told her to wait, to train more, to prepare properly for the voice step. But she insisted she was ready, insisted she knew better than everyone else. The old woman's eyes went distant, remembering. She stood before the rift, and she sang. And her voice was beautiful. I've never heard anything like it, before or since. For a moment we thought she'd succeeded. The rift seemed to respond, to bend to her will. But then she got arrogant. She thought she'd won, thought she'd conquered the darkness. So she demanded more, demanded the rift give her power, give her control, give her everything she wanted. Grandmother Ash's voice went hard. The rift doesn't respond well to demands. What did it do? It showed her the truth. Showed her that she wasn't special, wasn't chosen, wasn't anything except a small, fragile thing that would inevitably die and be forgotten. Showed her every fear, every inadequacy, every moment of self-doubt she'd ever had. And then it offered to take the pain away, To consume her, dissolve her, make her part of something greater. And she accepted? She begged for it, Grandmother Ash said quietly. Begged the rift to take her, to end the pain of being human and flawed and finite. Ronan tried to pull her back, tried to use the bond to anchor her. But she'd already let go. By the time we got her out, her mind was gone. She lasted 3 more days, screaming, before her body gave up. I couldn't eat anymore. My stomach was churning, my hands shaking. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to understand what you're facing, she said firmly. The rift doesn't want to hurt you. It wants to help. It wants to take away all your pain, all your fear, all your human weakness. And it'll feel good. It'll feel like relief, like peace, like finally coming home. She leaned forward, her purple eyes boring into mine. But it's a lie. The rift doesn't understand humans. It only understands consumption and eternity. If you let it take you, there won't be anything left to save. Not even Ronan's bond will be enough to bring you back. So, what do I do? I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. You remember who you are, she said simply. Not who you were in your pack. Not who Ronan needs you to be. Not who anyone else expects. Who you actually are, in the deepest part of your soul. Hold on to that. Sing from that place. And when the rift offers you peace, you tell it no. What if I can't? Then you'll end up in the catacomb with Cassandra, she said bluntly. But I don't think you will. You're different from her. You've already survived being broken. By your family, by Cyprian, by a lifetime of being told you were wrong. You know what it's like to lose yourself, and you chose to come back. That's something Cassandra never learned. She stood, collecting the breakfast tray. Come, we need to get you ready. The ceremony is in 6 hours, and there's much to do. Getting ready apparently meant bathing in water infused with shadow essence, which felt like bathing in silk and darkness, having my hair arranged in an elaborate style, woven with silver threads, and being dressed in a gown that took my breath away. It was black, of course, but not simple black. This fabric seemed to contain entire galaxies, stars and nebulas shifting across the surface with each movement. The neckline was cut to display my bond mark, which now extended in delicate patterns across my collarbone like lightning frozen in skin. The sleeves were long and flowing, made of shadow silk that moved even when I stood still. You look like a queen, Grandmother Ash said with satisfaction. I looked like something between a bride and a warrior, something between sacrifice and sovereign. I looked like I belonged here, in this place of shadow and silver light. I'm ready, I said. No, you're not, she corrected. But you'll do it anyway. That's what makes you worthy. She led me through the palace, and this time I noticed more shadow-touched people had appeared. They lined the corridors, watching silently as I passed. Some nodded in encouragement. Others touched their hands to their hearts in a gesture I didn't understand but felt honored by. We descended to the throne room, the massive chamber with 7 thrones and the crystal platform. But it looked different now. The 7 thrones had been arranged in a circle, and in the center of that circle, where the platform used to be, was a door. Not a metaphorical door. An actual door, standing upright in the middle of the room with nothing supporting it, carved from what looked like frozen void. Through the cracks around its edges, I could see light, but not normal light. This light was wrong, moving in ways light shouldn't move, colors that didn't exist in nature. The rift's gate. The entire court was assembled. I saw Sarah and Torin, Kess and Leah, Marcus and dozens of others I'd met briefly, or not at all. The 12 children from the Nightshade Pack stood together near one of the thrones, holding hands, looking terrified and excited in equal measure. And in front of the gate, wearing a crown of obsidian and robes that seemed made of living shadow, stood Ronan. He looked like a king, like something ancient and powerful and slightly terrifying. Then he saw me, and his expression softened into something achingly human. "You came," he said, like there'd been any doubt. "I promised, didn't I?" I walked forward until I stood beside him, close enough to touch. "How do we do this?" "We open the gate," he said. "You step through. The rift will test you, show you things, offer you things, try to break you or consume you. You sing. You use your voice to command it, to tell it what you are and what you'll accept. If you succeed, the rift acknowledges you as its equal. If you fail, I end up like Cassandra. You won't fail. You can't know that." "I know you," he said firmly. "I know you've been fighting for autonomy your entire life. I know you've been told no 1,000 times, and you've never stopped trying to be heard. I know your voice is the strongest thing about you. Trust it. Trust yourself." He held out his hand. "Ready? What would you do, lovelies? Would you take his hand? Would you walk through that gate into darkness that had broken stronger people than you?" I took his hand. Together we approached the gate. This close, I could feel the pull of the rift, like standing at the edge of a cliff, like gravity magnified 1,000 times, like everything in me wanted to fall forward and keep falling forever. "I'll be with you the whole time," Ronan said, his voice steady despite the power crackling around us. "In your mind, through the bond. If it gets too much, if you need to stop, just call for me. I'll pull you out. Even if it hurts you, especially if it hurts me." He kissed my forehead, quick and gentle. "You're worth any pain, Isolde Knight. Remember that when the rift tries to tell you otherwise." He released my hand and stepped back. The court fell silent, watching, waiting. Ronan's voice rang out, formal now, carrying the weight of ritual. "Eclipse Court, we stand before the rift's gate to complete the binding of souls. Isolde Knight, Eclipse-born, survivor of blood and fire, now seeks to master voice. She will enter the rift alone, face the darkness alone, and return transformed, or not return at all. A collective intake of breath from the assembled court. Do you, Isolde Knight, enter this gate of your own free will?" "I do," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Do you understand that the rift may break you, consume you, or change you beyond recognition?" "I do." "Do you swear to remember who you are, to fight for your autonomy, to refuse consumption even when offered peace?" I thought about Cassandra, begging to be taken. I thought about my grandmother, choosing love over power. I thought about myself, standing in that temple, choosing truth over comfort. "I swear," I said firmly. Ronan nodded once, sharp and satisfied. Then he raised his hands, and the gate swung open. Beyond was everything and nothing. Darkness so deep it had texture, light so bright it was just another form of darkness, and underneath it all, a sound like singing, like screaming, like the universe exhaling. "Go," Ronan said softly. "I'm with you." I stepped through the gate. The rift swallowed me whole. Chapter 9. The Rift that sang her name. Have you ever been erased, lovelies? Have you ever felt yourself dissolving piece by piece until you couldn't remember what shape you were supposed to have? That's what the rift felt like. One moment I was Isolde, standing at a gate, stepping forward. The next moment I was scattered, unmade. 1,000 pieces of consciousness floating in an infinite void. "Who are you?" something asked. Not words exactly. More like a concept pressed directly into whatever remained of my mind. I tried to answer, but I'd forgotten. Was I someone? Had I been someone? The memory felt distant, unimportant. "You are tired," the present suggested. "You have fought so long. Let us carry the weight. Let us take the pain. Let us make you eternal." Yes, I was tired. So very tired. "Give us your name, and we will give you rest." My name. I had a name. What was it? "Izzy," I heard, faint and far away. Cyprian's voice? Number? Someone else? Someone who sang in the dark. Leora. Not my name, but close. Connected somehow. We can take them too, the presence offered. All the people who hurt you. All the ones who made you small. Give us permission, and we will consume them. You'll never have to hurt again. Part of me wanted that. Wanted Cyprian erased for his betrayal. Wanted my mother dissolved for her lies. Wanted everyone who'd ever made me feel wrong to simply stop existing. But another part, small but insistent, said no. These are your memories, it insisted. Painful, yes, but yours. They shaped you, made you strong enough to stand here. Strength is irrelevant, the rift said. In eternity, everything is equal. Everything is one. I don't want to be one, I thought back. I want to be me. But you don't even remember who me is. True, but I could find out. Could pull myself back together, piece by scattered piece. I reached for the first memory. A garden. Moonlight. Someone singing. Grandmother, I remembered. Grandmother Alara singing to me when I was small. Before she was exiled. Before they taught me to be afraid of shadows. She's dead, the rift said. We could bring her back. Would you like that? We could show you how she sings here, in us, eternal and preserved. Tempting. So tempting. But Grandmother Ash's voice echoed in my fragmenting mind. The rift doesn't understand humans. It only understands consumption and eternity. No, I said, gathering more pieces of myself. She's not in you. She's in me. In my memories. In the songs she taught me. That's enough. The rift pushed harder. You are small and scared and alone. We can make you big. We can make you powerful. We can make you matter. I already matter. To whom? The pack that exiled you? The family that sold you? The sister who betrayed you? Each word was a knife, cutting away my defenses. But then, to me. Ronan's voice, clear and close, and absolutely certain. You matter to me, to the children you saved, to the court that's been waiting for you, to yourself. The bond mark on my chest. I could still feel it, even dissolved as I was, blazed with heat. Hold on to me, Ronan said through the bond. I've got you. You're not alone. I latched onto his presence like an anchor, like a rope through the void, and I pulled myself toward it. More memories came flooding back. Walking down the aisle in red, hearing betrayal in my mind link. Kissing a beggar and feeling the moon crack. Surviving black fire that burned away every lie. Standing in a courtyard and choosing truth over comfort. Isolde, I remembered. My name is Isolde Night. I'm Eclipse born. I survived blood and fire, and I will not be consumed. The rift roared. If roaring is something that can happen in a place without sound. It pushed against me with the weight of infinity, trying to scatter me again, trying to make me forget. But I was remembering now, pulling myself together faster than it could dissolve me. I am not Cassandra, I declared. I don't want your peace. I don't want to be eternal. I want to be human and flawed and finite. I want to grow and change and die someday. I want to matter because I choose to, not because I'm consumed into something greater. Foolish, the rift said. Human, I corrected. And then I sang. Not with a throat or vocal cords. I didn't have those anymore. But with whatever essence of self I'd managed to pull back together. I sang the way my grandmother had taught me, the way the shadows in my childhood bedroom had responded to, the way I'd hummed to myself when no one was listening. I sang my name, Isolde Night. I sang my history, eclipse-born, shadow-touched, fire-tested, bond-marked. I sang my choice. I choose partnership over consumption. I choose growth over eternity. I choose to stand beside the Shadow King, not dissolve into the rift. The darkness around me began to shift, to take shape, to respond. You are strong, The rift acknowledged, and for the first time it sounded almost respectful. Stronger than the last one. Stronger than most. But strength is not enough. We could still break you. Slowly. Over centuries. You are one. We are infinite. I'm not one, I sang back. I'm two. And I felt Ronan surge through the bond, his presence joining mine, his voice adding to my song. Together we sang to the rift, not as conqueror and conquered, but as equals, meeting equals. We sang boundaries. You stay in your realm. We guard the gates. We keep each other honest. We sang respect. You are ancient and powerful. We are fleeting and determined. Neither is better. Both are necessary. We sang balance, shadow and light, darkness and flame, consumption and creation, all in perfect opposition, all in perfect harmony. The rift sang back. We accept these terms. You may pass, Eclipse-born. You may claim your throne. You may stand as bridge between our realm and theirs. But know this, it added, and I felt something like amusement in the words. We will test you again, and again, and again. Every time you come near this gate, every time you use shadow magic, every time you let your guard down. We are patient. We are eternal. We can wait. Then wait, I sang back, absolutely fearless now that I'd found myself again, because I'm not going anywhere. The rift laughed, a sound like universes colliding, like stars being born, like the first note of a song that would last forever. And then it released me. I came back together all at once, every scattered piece slamming back into place. I had a body again, flesh and bone and breath. I had a voice again, throat and tongue and lungs. I had a name again, Isolde Knight, absolutely certain of who I was and what I'd chosen. I was standing in the throne room again, in front of the gate, with the entire court staring at me in stunned silence. My dress was gone, dissolved by the rift apparently. In its place I wore something new, a gown woven from shadow and starlight, perfectly fitted, with the bond mark on my chest glowing so bright it cast the entire room in silver-black radiance. And on my head, weighing almost nothing but feeling like everything, was a crown. Not obsidian like Ronan's. This one was made of frozen moonlight, silver and opalescent, carved with the same shifting symbols that marked the throne room doors. The Eclipse crown. Mate to the shadow crown. Missing for 60 years, waiting for someone strong enough to claim it. Ronan stood before me, eyes wide with wonder and relief and something that might have been love. You did it, he breathed. You actually did it. You sang to the rift, and you won. We won, I corrected. I felt you there. Heard you. I couldn't have done it alone. You're incredible, he said, and suddenly he was kneeling, right there in front of the entire court. Isolde Knight, Eclipse-born, rift-tested, voice master. I offer you the Eclipse throne. I offer you partnership in ruling this court. I offer you my crown, my kingdom, and... His voice dropped to something private. Just for me. My heart, if you'll have it. The court held its breath. I looked at this man who'd waited 60 years for someone who could stand beside him, who'd dressed as a beggar and crashed my wedding and offered me truth when I'd been drowning in lies, who'd held me through shadow travel and warned me about dangers and promised never to force my choices. What would you have done, lovelies? Would you have accepted? Would you have claimed a crown you never asked for but somehow always needed? I reached down and took his hands, pulling him to his feet. I accept your throne, I said clearly, so everyone could hear. I accept your partnership. I accept your heart. Then, softer, just for him, and I offer mine in return. Broken and healing, and absolutely yours. His eyes flooded with silver light. Not black anymore, but something brighter. Something that matched the crown on my head and the bond mark on my chest. The court erupted. They were cheering, stamping their feet, calling out in the old language. The 12 children from the Nightshade Pack were crying and laughing. Grandmother Ash was nodding in satisfaction, like this was exactly what she'd expected. Ronan cupped my face in his cold hands and kissed me. Not the desperate kiss from the temple, or the gentle one in the catacomb, or the promising one before sleep. This was a new kiss, equal to equal, queen to king, partner to partner. This was the kiss that sealed the bond completely. Blood and fire, and voice, all combined into something unbreakable. When we broke apart, the bond mark had changed again. It was no longer just on my chest. It had spread, delicate silver-black lines extending down my arms like vines, wrapping around my wrists where Ronan's obsidian cuff still rested. And Ronan had marks too. Silver lines appearing on his skin, mirror images of mine, proof that we were truly bound now. Two halves of one whole. Shadow and light perfectly balanced. "My queen," he said, and it sounded like prayer and promise and pure joy all combined. "My king," I replied, and meant it with every fiber of my being. The court surged forward then, everyone wanting to congratulate us, to touch the new queen, to witness history being made. But through it all, I kept my hand in Ronan's, kept my crown steady on my head, kept my voice strong and certain, because I was Isolde Knight, Eclipse-born queen of the Shadow Court, and I had finally found where I belonged. Chapter 10. The Moon Bond Bite. The celebration lasted hours. The court brought out wine that tasted like starlight and midnight combined, food that shouldn't exist but somehow did. Music played on instruments carved from shadow and strung with moonbeams. The 12 children from the Nightshade Pack danced with court members who taught them the old steps, the old songs, the old ways they'd never been allowed to learn. I sat on the Eclipse throne, my throne now, strange as that felt, with Ronan beside me on his shadow throne, our hands intertwined between the seats. "How do you feel?" he asked during a brief lull in the endless stream of well-wishers. "Like I just fought a war and won," I admitted. "Exhausted, exhilarated, slightly terrified that I'll wake up and find this was all a dream." "If it's a dream, we're sharing it," he said, squeezing my hand. "And I don't plan on waking up." Sarah approached with a golden chalice, bowing low. "Your Majesties, the traditional toast. The court wishes to hear you speak." Ronan stood, pulling me up with him. The music stopped. The entire court turned to face us. Hundreds of shadow-touched people with hope in their eyes. "Eclipse Court," Ronan began, his voice carrying easily through the chamber. "For 60 years I have ruled alone. For 60 years I have carried the weight of the rift, the responsibility of protection, the burden of leadership without partnership. It was..." He paused, and I saw the weight of those decades in his face. It was the loneliest thing imaginable. He turned to me, and his gray eyes were soft. "But tonight, that ends. Tonight I stand beside someone who chose truth over comfort, who faced the rift and emerged stronger, who claimed a crown not because she had to, but because she could. Tonight I stand beside my equal." He raised the chalice. "To Queen Isolde Knight, Eclipse-born, Riftmaster, Voice of Shadow. May her reign be long, and her crown rest lightly." "To Queen Isolde," the court echoed, their voices rising like thunder. Ronan drank from the chalice, then passed it to me. The wine inside was deep purple, almost black, and it tasted like power distilled into liquid form. When I lowered the chalice, the court was watching expectantly. Right. My turn to speak. I'd never given a speech before. Never had to address hundreds of people who were looking to me for guidance, for hope, for leadership. But I'd survived the rift. Surely I could survive this. "I won't lie to you," I began, and several people smiled at the bluntness. 3 days ago I had no idea this court existed. No idea shadow magic was real. No idea I was anything except a failed Luna of the Nightshade Pack. I saw several of the children nod in recognition. They knew that feeling, that sense of not quite fitting. But I was wrong. I wasn't a failure. I was just in the wrong place. trying to be something I was never meant to be, trying to fit into boxes that were never meant to hold me. I looked at Mira, at the twins, at the young man who'd been hiding his gifts for years. Some of you know what that feels like. Some of you spent years hiding, pretending, making yourselves smaller to survive. I see you. I was you. And I promise you this. In this court, you will never have to hide again. You will never have to apologize for existing. You will never have to be less than you are to make others comfortable. The children were crying now, and so were several adults. I can't promise I'll be a perfect queen, I continued. I'm 22 years old. I'm still learning my own gifts, and I will absolutely make mistakes. But I promise I will always choose truth. I will always fight for your right to choose who you are and who you want to become. And I will stand beside your king. I squeezed Ronan's hand to keep this court safe, balanced, and free. I raised the chalice again, to the Eclipse Court, to shadow and light, to finding where you belong. To the Eclipse Court! They roared back, and the sound was like home. The celebration continued long into the night, or what passed for night in this timeless place. Eventually, though, people began to drift away, heading to their quarters, leaving Ronan and me alone in the throne room. You were magnificent, he said, pulling me into his arms. That speech was terrifying, I interrupted. I thought I was going to throw up. You hid it well. He kissed my temple, my cheek, the corner of my mouth. You're a natural leader, Isolde. They already love you. They love what I represent, I corrected. Someone who survived what broke others. Someone who gives them hope that they can survive too. That's leadership, he said simply. We stood there for a long moment, swaying slightly to music only we could hear, the bond between us humming with contentment. Ronan, I said finally, what happens now? We've completed the 3 steps. The bond is sealed. But you mentioned something about mating being separate? He pulled back to look at me, and there was heat in his eyes now. The bond makes us partners in power. Mating makes us partners in every other way. He seemed to struggle for words. It's intimate, permanent. Once we exchange mating bites, we'll be able to feel each other's emotions constantly, not just echoes. We'll be able to speak mind to mind without effort. We'll be connected in ways that go beyond magic. That sounds intense. It is. Which is why I said it was your choice, your timeline. I won't pressure you, Isolde. We can wait weeks, months, years if that's what you need. I thought about it. Thought about Cyprian, who'd been pushing for consummation from the moment we got engaged, who'd made me feel guilty for wanting to wait, wanting to be sure, wanting to feel ready. And I thought about Ronan, who'd given me choice at every step, who'd waited 60 years for someone who could stand beside him and was willing to wait longer if I asked. What if I don't want to wait? I asked quietly. His eyes widened. Isolde. I'm not saying tonight, I clarified quickly. I'm exhausted, and this crown is giving me a headache, and I'm pretty sure I need about 12 hours of sleep before I can think straight. But soon. Because I don't need time to decide if I want this. I already know. You're sure? I kissed a beggar to ruin my wedding, I reminded him. I walked through the rift and sang to darkness. I claimed a crown I never asked for and gave a speech to hundreds of people while terrified. Being sure is kind of my thing now. He laughed, that startled, genuine laugh I was coming to love. Fair point. So, I continued, feeling bold, tell me about mating bites. How does it work? Traditionally, it happens under the full moon. Or, in our case, the blood moon, the one that cracked when you first kissed me. It's healed now, but it's different. Marked with shadow. It's perfect for a mating ceremony. When's the next blood moon? Tomorrow night. My stomach flipped. That's soon. Too soon? He asked carefully. I thought about it. Really thought about it. Not about what I should do or what was expected. but about what I actually wanted. And what I wanted was him. This strange, ancient, powerful man who'd seen something in me worth saving when I'd been drowning in lies. Who'd offered me darkness and freedom and truth in equal measure. No, I said firmly, not too soon. Tomorrow night is perfect. His smile was radiant. Then tomorrow night, under the blood moon, in front of the court, I'll claim you as mine, and you'll claim me as yours, equal to equal, queen to king. Forever. Forever is a long time, I pointed out. I've lived 300 years, he said. Forever with you sounds perfect. He kissed me then, deep and slow and full of promise. The bond mark on my chest blazed with heat, and I could feel his emotions through it. Love and desire and desperate hope all tangled together. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. You should rest, he said, voice rough. Tomorrow will be intense. Will it hurt? The bite? For a moment, he admitted. But then it's just pleasure. Connection. Everything good about being alive concentrated into a single moment of perfect understanding. You make it sound like a drug. It's better than any drug, he said seriously. It's real. Raw. True. And once it's done, we'll never have to wonder what the other is thinking or feeling. We'll just know. That should have been terrifying. No privacy, no secrets, no space to hide. But after 22 years of lies and performances, and carefully constructed masks, the idea of being completely known sounded like relief. Tomorrow night, I said. I'll be ready. I know you will, he said. You're the bravest person I've ever met, Isolde Knight. He walked me back to my quarters, kissed me goodnight at my door, and disappeared into his own room across the hall. I lay in my bed, my massive, starlight-draped, impossibly comfortable bed, and stared at the false ceiling with its impossible constellations. Tomorrow night I would complete the mating bond with the Shadow King. Tomorrow night I would become his in ways that transcended magic or power or crowns. Tomorrow night I would choose him completely, irrevocably, eternally. And for the first time in my entire life, I wasn't afraid of forever. Chapter 11. The Shadow King Who Crawled Back. I woke to screaming. Not human screaming. Something worse. Something that sounded like agony given voice, like the world itself was in pain. I bolted out of bed, the eclipse crown materializing on my head automatically. Apparently it did that now, and ran into the hallway. Ronan was already there, fully dressed in battle armor I hadn't seen before, his shadow crown glowing with black fire. What's happening? I demanded. The rift, he said grimly. Something's coming through. I thought you said it accepted our terms. It did, but something else is using the rift as a doorway. Something that shouldn't exist anymore. His face was pale, and I could feel genuine fear through our bond. We need to get to the throne room. Now. We ran through the corridors, shadow traveling when the distance was too great, emerging in the throne room to chaos. The rift's gate was open. Not a crack, but wide open, and through it was pouring smoke and ash and shadow given terrible form. The court members who'd been on guard duty were backing away, weapons drawn but useless against something that had no solid form to strike. And crawling through the gate, piece by piece, was a man. Or something that used to be a man. He was made of ash and shadow, with bone showing through in places, skin hanging in tatters, eyes that glowed with sick green light. But his face, ruined as it was, looked horribly familiar. Ronan made a sound like he'd been punched. "Father," he whispered. The ash creature turned those green eyes on us and smiled with too many teeth. "Hello, son." Miss me? Magnus Ashfall, the previous Shadow King. Dead for over a century. Killed in the Rift Wars when he'd tried to merge with the Rift itself and been consumed. Except he wasn't dead. Or he was dead but not gone. Or something in between that made my skin crawl. "You can't be here," Ronan said, his voice shaking. You died. I watched you die. I buried what was left of you in the catacombs. You buried a body, Magnus corrected, his voice like grinding stone. But I never left the rift. Couldn't leave. It wouldn't let me go. Not until now. He took a step forward and ash fell from him like snow. Not until you opened the gates wide enough. Not until you bonded with someone strong enough to make the rift pay attention. Those sick green eyes locked onto me. Hello, little Eclipse. I've been waiting for you. Ronan moved between us instantly. You can't have her. I don't want her, Magnus said, laughing. I want what she represents. A way out. A body strong enough to hold what I've become. Understanding crashed through me. You want to possess me. Smart girl. Yes, your body is perfect, eclipse-born, rift-tested, strong enough to survive the transfer. If I take you, I can finally leave this half-death. I can finally be whole again. Over my dead body, Ronan snarled. That can be arranged, Magnus said pleasantly. He moved fast, faster than something made of ash should be able to move. Shadow tentacles shot from his body, wrapping around Ronan, pulling him back toward the open gate. I reacted without thinking. I sang. Not words, just pure voice, pure power, the same song I'd used in the rift. The shadows around Magnus froze, and he hissed in pain. Oh, she's strong, he said, genuine surprise in his voice. Stronger than Cassandra. Stronger than anyone except... He looked at Ronan with something that might have been pride if it wasn't so twisted. You chose well, son. She might actually survive what comes next. Nothing is coming next, I said firmly. You're leaving. Now, back into the rift where you belong. I belong in the world, Magnus countered. I gave everything to protect the realm during the wars. I sacrificed myself to close the breaches. I died so others could live. And they repaid me by forgetting, by calling me a monster, by erasing me from history. There was real pain in his voice now, real grief. I know you suffered, Ronan said quietly, still struggling against the shadow tentacles but speaking gently. I know you did what you thought was right. But Father, you're not yourself anymore. The rift changed you. It twisted you into something you were never meant to be. It made me powerful, Magnus argued. It made me eternal. It gave me everything I ever wanted except... His voice cracked. Except a way home. The tentacles holding Ronan loosened slightly. I just want to come home, Magnus whispered. I've been trapped in that darkness for so long. Alone. Always alone. I just want to see sunlight again. Feel warmth, touch something real. My heart clenched despite the danger. I could feel the truth in his words. This creature made of ash and shadow had once been a king, a father, a man who'd sacrificed everything and been forgotten for it. But I could also feel the corruption in him. The rift had taken his grief and loneliness and turned them into hunger, into need, into something that would consume everything if given the chance. There's another way, I heard myself say. Both Ronan and Magnus turned to look at me. What do you mean? Ronan asked. I stepped closer to Magnus, close enough to see the ash falling from his form, to smell the smoke and decay. You can't have my body. But maybe I can sing you free. Isolde, no, Ronan started. Listen, I interrupted. The rift holds him because he merged with it, right? Because he tried to become part of it and got stuck. But I just sang to the rift, and it listened. Maybe I can sing him loose, help him separate from the darkness. And if that doesn't work, Ronan demanded. Then we trap him and seal the gate, I said. But we have to try. He's your father, Ronan. He deserves a chance. Magnus was staring at me with those sick green eyes, and I could see something shifting in them. Hope. Desperate, painful hope. You would do that? He asked. For a monster? for someone who just threatened to possess you? You're not a monster, I said firmly. You're a person who's been in pain for too long. And yes, I would do that. Because everyone deserves a chance to come home. Ronan made a sound between a laugh and a sob. You're going to give me a heart attack? You know that? Probably, I agreed. But that's what you get for bonding with me. I turned back to Magnus. Release him. Let Ronan go. And I'll sing. I'll try to free you from the rift. But you have to promise not to hurt anyone, not to try to take my body. And if this doesn't work, you go back peacefully. And if it does work, Magnus asked, then we'll figure out what comes next. Together. The tentacles holding Ronan dissolved. He stumbled forward and I caught him, helped him steady himself. Are you sure about this? He whispered. No, I admitted, but I'm doing it anyway. He kissed my forehead quickly. I'll be right here. If anything goes wrong, then you pull me out. I know, same as always. I approached Magnus, who had settled into a crouch, ash pooling around him like a cloak. What do I do? He asked, and he sounded almost childlike now. Just listen, I said. Listen to my voice. Remember who you were before the rift. Remember being human, being whole, being separate from the darkness. I began to sing. It wasn't the commanding song I'd used in the rift. This was gentler. A lullaby, almost. The kind my grandmother had sung to me when I was small and afraid of shadows. You are not the darkness, I sang. You are the light it tried to swallow. You are not the shadow. You are the man who fought too long. Come back, come home, come out of the rift. Remember warmth and touch and sun. Magnus shuddered and more ash fell away. Underneath, I could see something else starting to form. Actual skin, actual substance. Let go of pain, let go of rage, let go of everything that keeps you trapped. You've paid enough. You've suffered long. It's time to rest. It's time to heal. His form was solidifying now, the sick green light in his eyes fading to gray. The shadow tentacles were dissolving. The ash was clearing, and underneath it all was a man. Just a man. Exhausted and broken, and finally free. Magnus collapsed forward and Ronan caught him. For a moment, they just held each other, father and son, reunited after a century of separation. I'm sorry, Magnus gasped, for everything, for leaving you alone, for becoming something terrible, for— Stop, Ronan said, his voice thick with tears. You're home now. That's what matters. Magnus looked up at me, and his eyes, gray now, just like Ronan's, were full of gratitude. Thank you, little Eclipse. You gave me what I thought I'd lost forever. You gave me myself back. Then he smiled, soft and sad. But I'm still dying. The rift took too much. I only have moments left. No, Ronan started. It's okay, Magnus said. This is better. Dying whole instead of living as a monster. Dying with my son beside me instead of alone in the dark. He reached up with a trembling hand and touched Ronan's face. You grew up well. You became everything I hoped you'd be. I'm so proud of you. Father, please. Love her, Magnus interrupted, glancing at me. Love her the way I loved your mother. Completely. Fearlessly. Without reservation. She's special, that one. She'll keep you honest. His form was dissolving again, but this time into something different. Not ash and shadow, but light. Pure, clean light that rose toward the ceiling like smoke. I can see her, he whispered, his voice fading. Your mother. She's waiting for me. Finally, after all this time. Tell her I miss her, Ronan said through tears. Tell her yourself, Magnus said. Someday, but not for a very long time. You have too much left to do. His eyes found mine one last time. Protect him. He's stronger than he thinks, but more fragile than he admits. Make him rest. Make him laugh. Make him remember he's allowed to be happy. I will, I promised. Good, Magnus said, and then he was gone. Dissolved completely into light that rose through the throne room and disappeared. The light didn't vanish completely, though. As it reached the ceiling, it burst into thousands of tiny sparks that drifted down like ash feathers, settling over the throne room, over the court members who'd witnessed everything, over Ronan and me. Where each feather touched Ronan's skin, a word appeared in glowing script, then faded. Forgive me. Love well. Be happy. Ronan stood there staring at his hands where the last words were fading, and then he broke. Completely. 60 years of holding himself together, of carrying guilt and responsibility and loneliness, all came crashing down at once. He collapsed to his knees and sobbed like a child. I knelt beside him immediately, pulling him into my arms, letting him cry against my shoulder while the court watched their king fall apart and rebuild himself in the same breath. He's free, Ronan gasped between sobs. He's finally free. He's with her. He's at peace, I finished, stroking his hair. And he forgave you for whatever you thought needed forgiving. He was proud of you. Did you hear that? He said he was proud. I heard, Ronan whispered. I heard. We stayed like that for a long time, kneeling on the throne room floor surrounded by ash feathers that spelled forgiveness, while the court gave us space to grieve and heal. Eventually, Grandmother Ash approached with water and soft cloths. Come, she said gently. Let's get you both cleaned up. Tomorrow is still the blood moon. Tomorrow is still your mating ceremony. Your father would want you to celebrate that, not mourn him. I can't celebrate after, Ronan started. After giving your father the greatest gift possible? She interrupted. After reuniting him with his love? After proving that even centuries of corruption can be healed with the right voice, the right heart, the right choice? She smiled at me. Your queen sang your father free from 100 years of torment. If that's not worth celebrating, I don't know what is. Ronan looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw the moment everything clicked. You saved him. Even after he threatened you, even after he tried to possess you, you sang him free. He was in pain, I said simply. And he was your father. Of course I tried. I love you, he said suddenly, fiercely. I know it's fast. I know we barely know each other. I know I shouldn't say it yet, but I love you, Isolde Knight. I love your courage and your compassion and the way you see solutions where everyone else sees only problems. My heart stuttered. I love you too, I said, and realized it was true. I think I started loving you the moment you knelt in the ashes and offered me a choice instead of a command. He kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise, while ash feathers drifted around us like blessing. When we broke apart, the court was smiling. Even through their shock at Magnus's appearance and dramatic exit, they were smiling at their king and queen finding each other. To bed, both of you, Grandmother Ash commanded. You have a mating ceremony tomorrow, and you both look like death warmed over. She wasn't wrong. Between the voice step, the celebration, and the confrontation with Magnus, I was running on fumes. Ronan and I walked back to our quarters together, still holding hands, still processing everything that had happened. At my door, he paused. Thank you. For my father, for giving him peace, for giving me closure I didn't know I needed. That's what partners do, I said. We heal each other's wounds, even the old ones. Tomorrow, he said, under the blood moon, I'm going to bite you and claim you as mine for all eternity. I know. Are you afraid? I thought about it honestly. A little. But mostly I'm excited. Mostly I can't wait to be completely connected to you, to feel what you feel, to know you as deeply as possible. Even the dark parts? He asked quietly. Even the parts that are broken or twisted or wrong? Especially those parts, I said firmly, because they're part of who you are. And I want all of you, Ronan Ashfall. Not just the king, not just the powerful shadow wielder, but the man who cried for his father, who waited 60 years for someone to stand beside him, who offers choice instead of commands. He rested his forehead against mine. I don't deserve you. Good thing I'm not asking what you deserve, I said. I'm asking what you want. And I think you want me. More than anything, he breathed. We stayed like that for another moment, breathing the same air, sharing the same space, completely content. Then he kissed my forehead and stepped back. Sleep well, my queen. Tomorrow we complete what we started in that temple. Tomorrow, I agreed. I watched him disappear into his room across the hall, then entered my own. The false stars above my bed seemed brighter tonight, and the bond mark on my chest glowed with soft silver-black light. Tomorrow I would mate with the Shadow King. Tomorrow I would become his completely. Tomorrow our story would enter its next chapter. But tonight I was just Isolde, tired, overwhelmed, and absolutely certain I'd made the right choice. I fell asleep with a smile on my face, and ash feathers spelling forgiveness dissolving into dreams. Chapter 12. The Pack That Saw the Eclipse. I woke to someone pounding on my door. Not gently, not politely, like they were trying to break it down. I stumbled out of bed, the eclipse crown materializing automatically, and threw open the door ready to face another crisis. Instead, I found Sarah, the ward keeper, looking panicked. Your Majesty, we have visitors, from the Nightshade Pack. They're demanding to speak with you, and they won't leave. My stomach dropped. Who? The Council of Elders. And, she hesitated, your sister. Of course my old life couldn't just stay in the past where I'd left it. Where's Ronan? Already in the throne room dealing with them. He asked me to wake you gently, but they're getting aggressive, and I thought you'd want to know. You thought right. Thank you, Sarah. I was already throwing on the first clothes I could find. The shadow silk dress from yesterday's celebration. Lead the way. We ran through the corridors, and I could hear the shouting before we even reached the throne room. Violation of ancient treaties. Stolen children from their rightful packs. Demand the return of Isolde Knight for trial. I walked through the doors, and the shouting stopped instantly. The Nightshade Pack elders stood in a semicircle before the thrones. 5 of them, including Elder Thorn. Behind them, looking small and miserable, was Leora. And sitting on his shadow throne, looking absolutely murderous, was Ronan. Ah, he said when he saw me. My queen, these representatives from your former pack have some concerns they'd like to voice. The way he said representatives made it sound like rodents. I can hear them shouting from my quarters, I said dryly, moving to stand beside his throne. The Eclipse throne rose from the floor to accommodate me. Apparently the palace furniture was sentient. What seems to be the problem? Elder Thorn stepped forward. The problem, child, is that you have violated sacred pack law. You abandoned your mate-to-be, stole shadow-touched children from their families, and consorted with a known enemy of the realm. Consorted, I repeated. That's a diplomatic way to phrase married. You are not married, she said coldly. The mating ceremony was never completed. You are still technically betrothed to Lord Cyprian Thorn. Ronan made a sound like a growl. She is bonded to me. Blood, fire, and voice. The 3 sacred steps. She is my queen and my mate-to-be. Your claim on her is void. Your bond is illegitimate, another elder argued. It was formed under duress, in a moment of emotional distress, without proper counsel or consideration. It was formed by my choice, I interrupted sharply. Nobody forced me to kiss him. Nobody forced me to walk through the rift. Nobody forced me to accept the Eclipse crown. I chose all of it, freely and fully. You were not in your right mind. I was in the most right mind I'd ever been in, I shot back. For the first time in my life, I was thinking clearly instead of thinking what you wanted me to think. Isolde, Leora spoke up suddenly, her voice small. Please, just come talk to us. Away from him. She glanced nervously at Ronan. "You don't have to come back to the pack. Just talk. Please." Something in her voice made me pause. She wasn't here by choice, I realized. The elders had dragged her along, probably hoping she could manipulate me into compliance. "Fine," I said. "We'll talk. But not here. In the gardens. And Ronan comes with me." "That's not," Elder Thorn started. "Those are my terms," I said flatly. "Take them or leave." The elders exchanged glances, clearly unhappy but unwilling to push their luck while standing in the heart of the Shadow King's power. "Very well," Elder Thorn said stiffly. I led them to the lower gardens, Torin's domain, where the shadow plants grew in impossible patterns. The pack representatives looked distinctly uncomfortable surrounded by so much shadow, but Leora seemed almost fascinated, reaching out to touch a silver-leafed tree before catching herself. "You have 5 minutes," I said, crossing my arms. "Say what you came to say." Elder Thorn launched into what was clearly a prepared speech. "The Nightshade Pack is willing to overlook your indiscretion if you return immediately. Lord Cyprian has agreed to continue the mating bond despite your betrayal." "How generous of him," I said sarcastically. "And the pack will welcome you back with only minor penalties. You'll need to undergo ritual cleansing, of course, to remove the shadow corruption, and you'll be monitored for a probationary period." "Let me stop you there," I interrupted. "I'm not corrupted." "I'm not coming back. And Cyprian can take his generous offer and shove it where the sun doesn't reach." "You would throw away your family, your pack, your entire life for a man you've known for 3 days?" another elder demanded. "I'm not throwing anything away," I corrected. "I'm choosing something better. I'm choosing truth over lies, freedom over control, partnership over property." "You're choosing darkness over light," Elder Thorn said. "And you're taking our children with you." "Your children chose to come," Ronan said quietly, speaking for the first time since we'd left the throne room. "Every single one of them. We offered sanctuary, not kidnapping. We offered choice, not coercion. They're too young to make such choices. They're old enough to know when they're suffocating," I said. "Old enough to know when they're being forced into boxes that don't fit. Old enough to want something better than hiding and lying and hating themselves. And you encourage this? This rebellion against pack, against family, against natural order? If your natural order requires children to hate themselves," I said, "then yes, I absolutely encourage rebellion against it." Leora had been quiet through all of this, but now she stepped forward. "Can we talk? Just us? Please?" I glanced at Ronan, who nodded slightly. The elders looked like they wanted to protest, but Ronan's expression suggested they'd regret it. I walked with Leora to a quiet corner of the garden, near a fountain that burbled with liquid shadow. "I'm sorry," she said immediately. "For everything. For Cyprian. For lying. For being too weak to tell the truth. For letting Mother push you into that mating bond when I knew he didn't really love you." "Why didn't you say something?" I asked, and I was surprised to find I wasn't angry anymore. Just sad. "Why did you let it go on for 6 years?" "Because I was a coward," she said simply. "Because it was easier to hide and hope and pretend than to risk Mother's disappointment. Because I thought maybe if I stayed quiet, you'd never have to know, and we could all just keep pretending to be happy." She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "But you were never happy, were you?" "I saw it, in the way you'd stare out windows like you were trapped, in the way you'd flinch when Cyprian touched you, in the way you'd sing to yourself when you thought no one was listening, like you were calling to something far away." "I was calling to him," I said, gesturing toward Ronan, who was watching us from across the garden. "I didn't know it at the time, but every song, every moment of feeling wrong. I was calling to the shadows, calling to where I actually belonged." "Are you happy now?" Leora asked quietly. "Here, with him?" I thought about it. About the rift and the terror and the responsibility and the weight of a crown I never asked for. And I thought about Ronan's cold hands and gentle touch, about finally being seen and known and loved for exactly what I was, about singing to darkness and having it sing back. Yes, I said. I'm terrified and overwhelmed and absolutely certain I'm going to mess everything up at least a dozen times. But I'm happy. Happier than I've ever been in the Nightshade Pack. Leora smiled, sad but genuine. Good. You deserve that. You always deserved that. What about you? I asked. Are you happy? With Cyprian? Her smile faded. I thought I was. But after you left, after the scandal, everyone treats us differently now, like we're the villains in your story. And maybe we are. Maybe we always were. You're not a villain, Lee, I said softly. You're just someone who made mistakes, same as everyone else. Can you forgive me? She whispered. Not now, maybe not for years, but someday? I looked at my sister, my complicated, flawed, hurting sister who'd betrayed me and was trying to make amends. I can try, I said honestly. I can't promise forgiveness right now. It's too fresh, too raw, but I can promise I'll work toward it. Because you're still my sister, even if you're not my pack anymore. She nodded, wiping tears. That's more than I deserve. Thank you. We walked back to the others. The elders looked hopeful, like they thought Leora had convinced me to return. I'm not coming back, I said, before they could start again. Not now, not ever. The Eclipse Court is my home. Ronan is my mate. This is where I belong. Then we have failed, Elder Thorn said coldly, and we will report to the Pack Council that Isolde Knight is lost to Shadow. Report whatever you want, I said. I'm not lost. I'm found. The elders turned to leave, but Leora lingered for a moment. I meant what I said. About being happy for you, and if you ever want to visit, or if you ever just want to talk, I'll know where to find you, I finished. Thank you, Lee. For coming, for being honest, for trying. She hugged me quickly, the first genuine hug we'd shared in years, and then she was gone, following the elders back toward whatever portal they'd used to reach the Eclipse Court. Ronan came to stand beside me, his hand finding mine automatically. You okay? He asked. Yeah, I said, surprised to find it was true. I thought seeing them would hurt more. Thought I'd feel guilty, or conflicted, or tempted to go back. But I just feel certain. This is where I'm meant to be. Even with tonight looming? He asked quietly. The mating ceremony? Especially with tonight looming, I said, squeezing his hand. I'm ready, Ronan. I'm ready to be yours completely. His eyes went dark with heat. Good. Because the blood moon rises in 6 hours, and I have plans for you, my queen. What kind of plans? The kind where I bite your shoulder hard enough to scar, where you bite me back, where the entire court watches us claim each other, where we become so tangled together that no force in existence could separate us. He pulled me close, his cold hand cupping my face, the kind where I make you mine forever. I'm already yours, I pointed out. Not yet, he said. Not completely. But tonight we finish what we started in that temple. Tonight, I make you mine in every way that matters. Heat flooded through me, the bond mark pulsing in response. 6 hours, I breathed. 6 hours, he confirmed, and then nothing will ever come between us again. Chapter 13. The ceremony that broke tradition. 6 hours had never felt so long and so short simultaneously. Grandmother Ash collected me after the Nightshade Pack departed, leading me to a bathing chamber I hadn't seen before. It was carved from rose quartz and filled with water that steamed with silver light. Traditional preparation for the mating ceremony, she explained, helping me out of my dress. The water is infused with moonlight and shadow essence. It'll strengthen the bond mark, prepare your body for the bite, and calm your nerves. My nerves are fine, I lied. She laughed. Child, you're shaking. It's normal. This is a big step, even for someone as brave as you. I sank into the water, and it felt like being wrapped in silk and starlight. The bond mark on my chest glowed brighter, the silver-black lines extending slightly, preparing for the connection to deepen. "What's it like?" I asked quietly. "The mating bite?" Grandmother Ash settled on a stool nearby, her ancient hands working some kind of ceremonial oil into a cloth. "It's different for everyone. But for those who are truly matched, truly meant for each other, it's transcendent. You'll feel his emotions as clearly as your own. You'll hear his thoughts without him speaking. You'll know his fears and hopes and dreams as intimately as you know your own name." That sounds intense. It is, but it's also beautiful. To be so completely known, so thoroughly understood, so perfectly matched. Most people never experience that kind of connection. "Does it hurt?" I asked. "The bite?" "For a moment," she admitted. "He'll bite deep enough to scar, to mark you permanently as his. And you'll do the same to him. But the pain transforms quickly into something else. Pleasure, connection, overwhelming sensation that makes the pain irrelevant." She started washing my hair with the moonlight-infused water, her touch gentle. "The court will watch," she continued. "That's tradition. They need to witness the bond completion, need to see their king and queen claim each other. But Ronan has set boundaries. They'll witness the bite and the bond formation, but afterwards, you'll have privacy." "Afterwards?" Her smile was knowing. "Child, you're mating with the Shadow King. Did you think the ceremony ended with just a bite?" My face heated. I hadn't thought that far ahead. "Well, think about it now," she said practically. "After the public ceremony, after the bite and the bond, you and Ronan will retire to the royal chambers. What happens there is between you two alone. But you should be prepared that mating bonds intensify things. Every touch will feel electric. Every kiss will feel like fire. Your bodies will crave closeness, connection, completion." "Oh," I said weakly. "If you're not ready for that—" "I am," I interrupted. "I am ready. I want this. All of it." She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Good. Then let's get you dressed." The mating ceremony gown was stunning. Black as midnight but shot through with silver thread that caught the light, making me look like I was wearing the night sky itself. The neckline was low, designed to display my bond mark and provide easy access to my shoulder, the traditional site for the mating bite. My hair was left loose, flowing down my back in waves, woven with small silver bells that chimed softly when I moved. The eclipse crown settled on my head, and I looked in the mirror at someone who was both me and not me. I looked powerful, regal, ready. "He's going to lose his mind when he sees you," Grandmother Ash said with satisfaction. "Good," I said, surprising myself with my boldness. "That's the idea." She laughed, delighted. "Come, the blood moon is rising. It's time." The ceremony was held in a courtyard I hadn't seen before, open to the sky where the blood moon hung low and massive. The moon had indeed healed from its cracking, but the shadow veins were still visible, black lines spreading across its red surface like the bond mark on my chest. The entire court was assembled, hundreds of shadow-touched people forming circles around a central platform carved from black glass. Torches burned with purple-silver flame, and the air hummed with power. And standing on the platform, wearing robes that seemed made of liquid shadow, was Ronan. He looked devastating. His shadow crown caught the moonlight, his gray eyes were locked on me, and his expression was pure hunger. I walked toward him, bells chiming with each step, and watched his eyes darken as I approached. "You're trying to kill me," he said when I reached the platform. "Looking like that, you're actively trying to stop my heart." "Is it working?" I asked innocently. "Catastrophically," he breathed. The beggar's kiss. She kissed a king to spite her mate. Then he crowned her queen. "Is it working?" I asked innocently. "Catastrophically," he breathed. Grandmother Ash stepped onto the platform with us, her voice carrying across the assembled court. We gather under the blood moon to witness the completion of a sacred bond. King Ronan Ashfall and Queen Isolde Night have survived blood, fire, and voice. Tonight they complete the final step, the mating bite. The court began to chant in the old language, a rhythm that made my blood sing and my bond mark pulse with heat. Ronan took my hand, his cold fingers wrapping around mine. "Last chance to run," he whispered, though his smile said he knew I wouldn't. "Not a chance," I whispered back. "You're stuck with me now." "Thank the rift," he said and pulled me close. Grandmother Ash continued the ritual. The mating bite is sacred. It binds soul to soul, heart to heart, mind to mind. Once given, it cannot be undone. Once accepted, it cannot be refused. Do you, Ronan Ashfall, offer your bite freely? "I do," he said, his voice resonating with power. "Do you, Isolde Night, accept his bite freely?" "I do," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "Then let the binding begin." Ronan's hand came up to cup my face, his thumb brushing across my lips. "I'm going to bite your shoulder. It'll hurt for a moment, but then..." His eyes darkened. "Then it'll feel like everything you've ever wanted all at once." "Do it," I breathed. He lowered his head to my shoulder, his breath cold against my skin. For a moment he just stood there, his lips brushing my collarbone, building anticipation until I thought I'd scream. Then he bit down. Pain exploded through me, sharp, intense, overwhelming. His teeth pierced deep, marking me, claiming me, making me his in the most primal way possible. I gasped, my hands gripping his shoulders to keep from falling. But then, just as Grandmother Ash had promised, the pain transformed. Heat flooded through my veins, originating from the bite and spreading outward in waves of pure sensation. The bond mark on my chest blazed so bright it was visible through my dress, and suddenly I could feel everything Ronan was feeling. His love for me, desperate and consuming and infinite. His desire, barely restrained, threatening to overflow. His relief that I was his, finally his, completely and irrevocably his. His joy, pure and simple and overwhelming. It was too much, too intense, too perfect. When he finally released my shoulder, there was blood on his lips and the triumph in his eyes. "Mine," he growled. "Forever mine." "My turn," I said, my voice coming out more confident than I felt. He tilted his head, exposing his neck in a gesture of complete trust. "Make it count, little Eclipse." Make me feel it. I rose on my toes, pressed my lips to his pulse point, felt his heartbeat thundering against my mouth, and I bit down. He groaned, his hands gripping my waist hard enough to bruise. Through the bond, I felt his reaction. Pain, yes, but also pleasure, connection, completion. His blood tasted like power and shadow and starlight all mixed together. Like drinking the essence of night itself. When I pulled back, my teeth marks were clearly visible on his neck, already beginning to scar into a permanent mark that matched the one he'd left on my shoulder. "Yours," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Forever yours." The bond mark between us exploded with light, silver and black intertwining so brightly, the entire courtyard was illuminated. The blood moon overhead pulsed in response, its shadow veins glowing. And suddenly, I could hear him. Not just feel his emotions, but hear his actual thoughts. Perfect. She's perfect. How did I get this lucky? How did she choose me? "I chose you because you saw me," I thought back, testing this new connection. His eyes widened. "You can hear me. And you can hear me. This is incredible. This is forever," he corrected. "From now until the end of existence, we're connected. Mind, body, and soul." The court erupted into cheers, celebrating their king and queen's completed bond. Purple and silver light danced through the air, the shadow plants in nearby gardens bloomed in response. and somewhere in the distance I could hear the 12 children from the Nightshade Pack singing in joy. Grandmother Ash smiled at us both. The bond is complete. The mating is sealed. What the rift has joined, let no force separate. She raised her hands. I present to you Ronan and Isolde Ashfall, Shadow King and Eclipse Queen, mated for eternity. The cheering grew louder. Ronan pulled me into a kiss that made the previous ones feel like practice. This was claiming, consuming, a kiss that said, mine in 1,000 languages. I kissed him back with equal fervor, pouring every emotion through the bond, love and desire, and certainty, and joy. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, he grinned at me with wicked intent. Ready to get out of here? He asked through our mental link. Desperately, I replied. He turned to the court. Thank you all for witnessing. My queen and I are retiring to our chambers. The celebration can continue without us. There were knowing laughs from the crowd, but no one protested. Ronan swept me into his arms, literally swept me up bridal style, and Shadow traveled us directly to his chambers. We materialized in a room I'd never seen before, even larger and more luxurious than mine. The bed was enormous, draped in shadow silk. Candles floated everywhere, casting gentle light. And through massive windows, the blood moon hung perfectly framed, watching over us. He set me on my feet carefully, like I was something precious and fragile. Are you sure? He asked, though I could feel through the bond that he desperately wanted the answer to be yes. We can stop here. The bond is complete. The rest doesn't have to happen tonight. I pressed a finger to his lips, silencing him. Ronan Ashfall, for someone 300 years old, you talk too much. Then I kissed him, and there was no more talking for a very long time. Through the bond, I felt every sensation doubled. What he felt when I touched him, what I felt when he touched me, all of it amplified and intertwined until I couldn't tell where I ended, and he began. He was gentle at first, almost reverent, like he couldn't quite believe I was real and his. But when I bit his lip and sent more through the bond, gentleness gave way to hunger. We moved together like we'd been made for this, like all the fear and loneliness and searching had been leading to this exact moment. Shadow and light, darkness and flame, perfectly balanced and completely united. I love you, he sent through the bond. I love you, I sent back. And under the blood moon, in a palace of shadows, the Shadow King and the Eclipse Queen completed their mating in every way that mattered. Later, much later, we lay tangled together in the massive bed, my head on his chest, his fingers trailing lazy patterns across my back. Tell me something, I said quietly. Something you've never told anyone. He was quiet for a moment. I was terrified tonight. Of the ceremony? Of losing you. Of you changing your mind. Of waking up and finding this was all a dream, that I was still alone in this palace, still waiting for someone who'd never come. His arms tightened around me. 60 years of loneliness does things to you, makes you doubt, makes you afraid to hope. I'm real, I assured him, and I'm not going anywhere. You're stuck with me, remember? Best thing that ever happened to me, he said, pressing a kiss to my hair. Through the bond, I felt the truth of it. He meant every word. Your turn, he said. Tell me something you've never told anyone. I thought about it. When I was little, before grandmother died, she used to tell me stories about the Eclipse Court. About shadow kings and moon queens and a place where people like us belonged. Everyone thought they were just fairy tales, made up stories to comfort a strange child. But I believed them. Part of me always believed them. She was preparing you, Ronan said softly. Giving you hope to hold on to until you found your way home. Do you think she knew, I asked, that someday I'd end up here? Eclipse-born always know, he said. They can see possibilities, futures that might be. She probably saw dozens of versions of your life. Some where you stayed in the Nightshade Pack. Some where you ran away alone. Some where you ended up here. And she told you stories so that when the right moment came, You'd recognize it. I miss her, I whispered. I know, but she'd be so proud of you. Of everything you've become, everything you've survived, everything you chose. He tilted my chin up so I was looking at him. You saved her court. You brought balance back to the shadows. You completed a bond that's been waiting for 60 years. You're exactly what she hoped you'd be. Tears pricked my eyes. How are you so good at saying exactly what I need to hear? Mating bond, he said with a smile. I can feel what you need. Besides, it's all true. We lay there in comfortable silence for a while, just existing together, feeling each other through the bond. What happens now? I asked eventually. We're mated. The bond is complete. What comes next? Now we rule, he said simply. Together. We train the shadow-touched children who came from your pack. We strengthen the rift's gates so nothing like my father's escape happens again. We build alliances with other packs who have shadow-touched members. We show the world that darkness isn't something to fear. It's something to balance with light. That's a lot of responsibility. It is. But we'll figure it out together. He grinned suddenly. Plus, I have an idea. Something that might help a lot of shadow-touched people who don't have anywhere to go. What kind of idea? An academy. A school for shadow magic. For eclipse-born and shadow-touched who need training, who need community, who need to learn they're not alone or broken or wrong. I sat up, excitement flooding through me and echoing back through the bond from him. That's brilliant. We could offer sanctuary and education. Give people what the packs won't. Acceptance and understanding. Exactly. He pulled me back down beside him. But that's a project for tomorrow. Tonight is just for us. Just for us, I agreed through the bond, and snuggled closer. We fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, the blood moon watching over us through the windows, two halves of one whole finally, completely united. Chapter 14, The Academy That Teaches Shadow. 3 months later, I stood in what used to be the East Wing, the dangerous place Ronan had warned me away from, and watched it transform into something beautiful. The Eclipse Eye Academy, we decided to call it. A place where shadow-touched people could learn to control their gifts, where eclipse-born could discover their power, where anyone who'd ever felt wrong for loving darkness could find home. The ward structures are holding, Sarah reported, consulting a crystal that showed magical energy patterns. The rift is contained, and we've created safe training rooms that can simulate different levels of shadow exposure. Good, I said, checking another room. What about living quarters? 50 rooms completed, another 50 in progress. We can house 100 students comfortably, more if we get creative with space-folding magic. We'd sent out word 3 weeks ago. Any shadow-touched person, any age, any skill level, was welcome to apply to the Eclipse Eye Academy. We'd expected maybe 20 applications. We'd received over 300. Apparently, there were a lot more shadow-touched people in the realm than the firepacks wanted to admit. People who'd been hiding their gifts for years. People who'd been exiled from their homes. People who'd been told they were cursed or broken or evil. We couldn't take them all immediately. The academy needed to be properly prepared, properly staffed, properly safe. But we'd accepted the first 50 students, with plans to expand quickly. Your Majesty, Torrin called from across the courtyard, the first group is arriving. My heart jumped with nerves and excitement. This was it. Our first students. Our first chance to prove that shadow magic could be taught, controlled, celebrated, instead of feared. I hurried to the main entrance where Ronan was already waiting, looking regal and intimidating in his formal robes. But I could feel his nervousness through the bond. He wanted this to work as badly as I did. Ready? I asked through our mental link. With you? Always, he replied, and took my hand. The portal opened, and students began stepping through. They were all ages, all backgrounds. A girl who couldn't have been more than 7, clinging to her older brother's hand. A middle-aged woman with grief lines around her eyes. A young man covered in scars that looked suspiciously like burn marks, punishment for his shadow gifts, probably. The 12 children from the Nightshade Pack rushed forward to greet them, already appointed as junior guides since they'd been here longest and knew the palace best. Mira, who'd been the first to step forward that night in the courtyard, took the 7-year-old's hand. "Hey there. I'm Mira. What's your name?" "Sarah," the little girl whispered. "That's a pretty name. Want me to show you where you'll sleep? We have the softest beds ever, and the shadows sing lullabies if you're scared at night." Sarah's eyes went wide with wonder instead of fear, and she let Mira lead her away. One by one, the students were greeted, welcomed, shown to their rooms, introduced to the court members who'd volunteered to teach. The last person through the portal made my breath catch. It was a woman, maybe 50, with silver-streaked hair and eyes that shifted between gray and violet. She moved with quiet confidence, and there was something achingly familiar about her face. She stopped in front of me, studying my features with the same intensity I was studying hers. "You have her eyes," she said finally. "My mother's eyes. Alara's eyes." Understanding crashed over me. You're my grandmother's daughter. My mother's sister." "I'm Lyanna Moonweaver," she said, "and I've been waiting 22 years to meet my shadow-touched niece." I couldn't speak, could barely breathe. My mother had a sister? A sister she'd never mentioned, never even hinted at? "Breathe," Ronan sent through the bond, his hand squeezing mine. "I'm right here." "I didn't know you existed," I managed. "Your mother made sure of that," Lyanna said, not unkindly. "After my mother was exiled, after I chose to follow her to the Eclipse Court, your mother cut all ties. She wanted to belong to the Nightshade Pack completely, wanted to erase any connection to Shadow. That meant erasing me. I'm so sorry. Don't be. You're not responsible for your mother's choices any more than I'm responsible for hers." She smiled, and it was warm and genuine. But when I heard the Eclipse Queen was looking for teachers, when I heard Alara's granddaughter had claimed the throne, I knew I had to come. To meet you. To teach, if you'll have me. "What can you teach?" I asked, still processing that I had an aunt, that my grandmother's legacy continued. "Shadow singing," she said. "The art of using voice to shape darkness, to command it, to harmonize with it. Your grandmother was a master. I learned from her before she died. And I can teach your students, teach you if you want, everything she taught me." I looked at Ronan, who nodded encouragingly through the bond. "Yes," I said. "Yes, absolutely. Welcome to the Eclipse Eye Academy, Professor Moonweaver." Her smile widened. "Just Lyanna. We're family, after all. Family." The words settled warm in my chest. I'd thought I'd lost my family when I left the Nightshade Pack, but I was building a new one. Ronan, the court, these students, and now Lyanna. The rest of the day was chaos, getting students settled, answering questions, dealing with minor crises. One boy accidentally shadow-traveled into a wall and needed healing, organizing meal schedules, and setting up the first training sessions. By evening, I was exhausted, but satisfied. The academy was real. It was happening. We were actually doing this. I found Ronan in what we'd designated as the main training hall, a massive room with walls that could shift to simulate different environments. He was teaching a combat class to some of the older students, showing them how to use shadow as defense, not just offense. The key, he was saying, is understanding that shadow isn't about destruction. It's about boundaries, about defining where you end and the world begins. When you create a shadow shield, you're not building a wall. You're defining your space. He demonstrated, and darkness bloomed around him in a perfect sphere, rippling with power. The students tried to mimic him with varying degrees of success. Some created flickering shadows that faded immediately. Others managed small, unstable barriers. But one girl, the middle-aged woman I'd noticed earlier, created a shadow shield that rivaled Ronan's in strength. He noticed, too. "What's your name?" "Kira," she said quietly. "I've been hiding my gifts for 30 years, training in secret, pretending to be weak." "You're not weak," Ronan said firmly. You're incredibly strong. With proper training, you could be teaching this class instead of taking it. She looked at him with shock and desperate hope. Really? Really? In fact, he glanced at me, and I felt his question through the bond. How would you like to be assistant combat instructor? Help me teach? Kira's eyes filled with tears. I'd be honored, Your Majesty. Just Ronan in the training hall, he said with a smile. Formality makes students nervous. I watched him work with the students, patient and encouraging, and fell in love with him all over again. He was so good at this, making people feel capable instead of broken, powerful instead of cursed. You're staring, he sent through the bond, amusement coloring the thought. You're worth staring at, I replied. Professor Ashlight. He choked on a laugh, and several students looked concerned. I'm fine, he assured them. My wife is just being distracting. Wife? One of the younger boys asked. I thought you were mates? Same thing, Ronan explained. Mating is the shadow-touched version of marriage. Different ceremony. Same commitment. Did it hurt? Another student asked shyly. The bite? For about 3 seconds, I said, joining the conversation. Then it was the best feeling in the world. Because of the bond? Mira asked. She'd joined the combat class even though she was technically too young. Because of the connection, I corrected. Knowing someone completely and being completely known in return. No secrets, no lies, no pretending, just truth. The students looked fascinated and slightly terrified. You don't have to mate anyone, Ronan assured them. The bond is a choice, not a requirement. Some shadow-touched never find their match. Others choose not to bond even when they do. It's always your decision. But when you do find your match, I added, when you find someone who sees all of you and loves you anyway, it's worth every moment of fear. Ronan sent warmth through the bond, and I felt his love wrap around me like a blanket. Class continued for another hour, then students drifted off to dinner, exhausted but happy. First day success? I asked Ronan as we walked back to our quarters. Overwhelming success, he agreed. Did you see Kira's shield work? She's going to be an incredible teacher. And did you see how the younger kids responded to Mira? She's a natural leader. We spent the walk discussing students, planning curricula, dreaming about the academy's future. In our rooms, we found dinner waiting, courtesy of the kitchen staff who'd learned our schedules, and ate while watching the blood moon rise through our windows. 3 months ago, I said, I was walking down an aisle toward a man who didn't love me, planning to bind myself to a life that would have killed me slowly. And now? Ronan asked. Now I'm sitting with my mate, running an academy, teaching shadow magic and actually happy. I shook my head in wonder. How did this become my life? You kissed a beggar, he reminded me with a grin. Best decision I ever made, I said, and kissed him again. Through the bond, I felt his agreement, his joy, his absolute certainty that we'd made the right choice in finding each other. Chapter 15. The Sister Who Begged for Light. A month into the Academy's operation, we received an unexpected visitor. Your Majesty, Sarah said, finding me in the library where I'd been helping Leanna catalog shadow singing techniques. There's someone at the gates, from the Nightshade Pack. She says she's your sister. My heart clenched. Leora? She's alone. Unarmed. She's asking for sanctuary. I exchanged glances with Ronan, who'd been reading nearby. Through the bond, I felt his concern mixed with curiosity. Let her in, I said, but escort her carefully. I want to talk to her before she sees the rest of the court. 20 minutes later, I sat across from my sister in a small receiving room. She looked terrible, dark circles under her eyes, her clothes wrinkled and travel-worn, her hands shaking as she clutched a cup of tea. Thank you for seeing me, she said quietly. What happened? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Everything fell apart after you left. She stared into her tea like it held answers. The scandal, the gossip, the judgment. Cyprian and I tried to make it work, tried to prove we actually loved each other and weren't just... She broke off. But it turns out when your relationship starts with betrayal, it's hard to build trust. I'm sorry. Don't be. We deserved it. She finally looked up at me. He hit me last week. During an argument. Just once, but her voice cracked. But I realized I was trapped in exactly the kind of life you escaped. A mating bond built on lies, a relationship without real love, a future that would slowly destroy me. My anger at her betrayal warred with sympathy for her situation. What did you do? I ran. Broke the engagement before the mating bond could be completed. The pack exiled me. They said I'd brought too much shame, caused too much trouble. She laughed bitterly. Funny. I helped destroy your engagement and got celebrated. I broke mine and got cast out. Why come here? Because I heard about the academy. Heard you were offering sanctuary to people the packs rejected. And I hoped. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Maybe you'd give me a chance. Not as your sister. I don't deserve that. But as someone who needs to learn to be better, to be honest, to stop hiding. I studied her face, reading the genuine regret, the desperate hope, the fragile determination to change. What do you think? I asked Ronan through the bond. I think she hurt you badly, he replied. And I think forgiveness is your choice, not mine. But I also think everyone deserves a chance to become better than they were. Even people who betray us, especially them. Otherwise, what are we building here? A place of healing or a place of judgment? He was right. The academy was supposed to be about second chances, about learning and growing and becoming more than your worst mistakes. You can stay, I said finally. Leora's head snapped up, hope blazing in her eyes. Really? On conditions, I continued. You're here as a student, not as my sister. Not yet. Maybe never? You'll train, you'll work, you'll prove through actions, not words, that you're serious about changing. And if you hurt anyone here, if you bring drama or manipulation or lies into this sanctuary, you're gone immediately. I understand, she said quickly. I'll do whatever you need. I'll prove myself. I promise. Don't promise, I said. Just do it. Promises are easy. Actions matter. I called Sarah to show Leora to student quarters and get her settled. As she was leaving, she paused at the door. Your Majesty, thank you for giving me a chance. I know I don't deserve it. You're right, I said bluntly. You don't. But maybe you can earn it. That's up to you. After she left, Ronan pulled me into his arms. That was hard for you. Harder than the rift, I admitted. At least the rift was straightforward. Survive or die. This is complicated. She's my sister, but she betrayed me. She's hurting, but she caused hurt. She wants to change, but can people really change? I did, he pointed out. I went from lonely Shadow King to Academy Headmaster with a mate I adore. If I can change, anyone can. You didn't need to change, I argued. You just needed to be seen. Maybe that's what she needs too. To be seen as she actually is, instead of who your mother wanted her to be. He kissed my forehead. Give her time. Give yourself time. See what happens. Over the next few weeks, I watched Leora carefully. She attended every class, even the difficult ones. She worked in the kitchens when not training. She helped younger students with their homework. She kept her head down and didn't ask for special treatment. But more than that, I watched her in moments she didn't know she was being observed. The way she'd flinch when someone raised their voice. The way she'd stare at her hands like they were foreign objects. The way she'd cry silently in corners, thinking no one could see. She was breaking and rebuilding herself. It was painful to watch, but necessary. 2 months after her arrival, I found her in one of the training rooms late at night, practicing with a shadow candle, a tool Leanna used to teach control. The candle would only light when the student achieved perfect emotional honesty. Leora was staring at it, tears streaming down her face, whispering things too quiet for me to hear. I was about to leave when suddenly the candle flickered to life. I was jealous, Leora said clearly, her voice raw. I was jealous that you were firstborn, that you got the better bloodline, that Mother paid attention to you even when she was criticizing. I was jealous that Cyprian wanted you, even though he settled for me. I was jealous that you were strong enough to hide your shadow gifts, while mine leaked out in dreams and I had to learn to suppress them completely. The candle burned brighter with each confession. I was angry that you made everything look easy when I was struggling. Angry that you got to walk away from the pack when I was trapped. Angry that even in exile, even in disgrace, you ended up happy while I ended up broken. The flame was steady now, bright and true, and I was wrong. About all of it. You weren't lucky. You were brave. You weren't chosen. You chose. And I could have done the same. Could have chosen truth over comfort years ago. But I was too weak, too scared, too selfish. She looked directly at the candle. I don't blame you for not forgiving me. I don't blame you for making me earn my place here. I don't blame you for anything because all of this pain and loneliness and regret, this is what I earned with my choices. The candle blazed so bright it illuminated the entire room. But I'm going to be better, she said. Not for you, not for Mother, not for anyone except myself. I'm going to learn to be honest, to be brave, to stop hiding and start living. Even if it's hard, even if it hurts, even if I fail 1,000 times before I succeed. I stepped into the room and she started, the candle flickering with her surprise. How long have you been there? She asked. Long enough, I said. She looked mortified. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. You lit the candle, I interrupted, pointing at the still burning flame. Do you know how rare that is? Most students take months to achieve emotional honesty pure enough to light it. You did it in 2. Only because I had so much to confess, she said bitterly. No, because you were willing to confess it. I sat down beside her, studying her face in the candle's light. That speech you just gave, about jealousy and anger and choosing to be better, that was brave, Lee. She looked at me with cautious hope. You used my nickname. Did I? I hadn't even realized. Old habits. We sat in silence for a while, watching the shadow candle burn. I can't forget what happened, I said finally. Can't just wave a hand and make the betrayal disappear. But I can. I took a breath. I can start trying to forgive. If you keep working this hard, keep being this honest, keep choosing to be better every day. I will, she said. I swear I will. Don't swear, I said, echoing what I'd told her when she first arrived. Just do it. She nodded, wiping tears from her face. Want to know something? I said. I was jealous of you too. She looked shocked. Of me? Why? Because you made everything look effortless. You fit into the pack's mold perfectly, never questioned anything, never seemed to struggle with who you were supposed to be. I envied how easy it looked for you. It wasn't easy, she said. I was just better at hiding the struggle. I know that now, I said. But back then, I felt like I was the broken one, the wrong one, the one who couldn't figure out how to belong. And you seemed to have all the answers. We were both pretending, Leora said quietly. Both wearing masks. Both suffocating in different ways. Yeah, I agreed. But we're not pretending anymore. That's something. The shadow candle flickered, acknowledging the truth in our words. Can I ask you something? Leora said hesitantly. Sure. Are you happy? Really happy? Or are you just pretending better than before? I thought about it honestly. I'm terrified a lot. Being queen is hard, running an academy is overwhelming, and sometimes I wake up convinced I'm going to fail everyone who depends on me. But underneath the fear, I smiled. Yeah, I'm happy. Really, genuinely happy. Because I get to be myself here. All of me, including the dark parts. That sounds nice, she said wistfully. It is. And you'll get there too. You're already starting. Look, you lit the candle. That's the first step. We talked for another hour, the candle burning steadily between us, casting light and shadow in equal measure. When we finally stood to leave, Leora hugged me, quick and tentative, like she was afraid I'd push her away. I hugged her back. Not with the closeness we'd had as children, but not with distance either. Something in between. Something that acknowledged hurt, but reached toward healing. That was brave, Ronan sent through the bond. He'd been watching from the doorway, giving us space, but staying close in case I needed him. Which part? I asked. All of it. Forgiving her. Sharing your own vulnerability. Building a bridge instead of a wall. I'm still angry, I admitted. Still hurt. Of course you are. Forgiveness doesn't erase pain. It just makes room for both pain and love to exist together. I went to him, and he wrapped his arms around me, steady and solid. She's going to be okay, he said aloud. And so are you. This is what healing looks like. Messy and complicated and slow. But it's happening. I leaned into him, feeling his confidence through the bond, letting it shore up my own doubts. Come on, he said. Let's go to bed. Tomorrow is another day of students and classes, and minor catastrophes. You make it sound exhausting. It is exhausting, he agreed cheerfully. But it's also worth it. Look what we've built, Isolde. Look what we're creating. I looked back at the training room, where Leora's shadow candle still burned, proof that even the deepest darkness could hold light if you were brave enough to strike the match. Yeah, I said. It's worth it. Chapter 16. The Wedding That Never Was. 6 months after the academy opened, Ronan proposed that we have a proper wedding. We're already mated, I pointed out, confused. Already bonded. What would a wedding add? Celebration, he said. Not for us, we don't need it. But for the court, for the students, for everyone who's watching us build this new world. They need to see that shadow-touched people can have normal, happy traditions. That we're not just darkness and danger and brooding in corners. You brood in corners all the time. That's different. I'm dramatically brooding. It's part of my aesthetic. He grinned. Come on, let me marry you properly. Let me put on ridiculous formal clothes and make dramatic vows and give everyone an excuse to celebrate. He's thought about this a lot, I realized through the bond. He wants to give you the wedding you never got. Okay, I said, but we're doing it our way. Not traditional pack ceremony, not stuffy royal protocols. Our way. His eyes lit up. Deal. Planning the wedding was chaos. Everyone had opinions. The court wanted formal traditions. The students wanted something casual and fun. Grandmother Ash insisted on including ancient shadow rites. Lyanna wanted shadow singing incorporated. The 12 original students from Nightshade Pack wanted to participate in the ceremony somehow. In the end, we designed something that was perfectly us, a blend of old and new, formal and casual, shadow and light. The ceremony would be held in the gardens where shadow plants grew alongside normal ones, symbolizing balance. We'd burn the ashes of my original wedding arch, the one meant for Cyprian, and build a new arch from the remains, shaped like rift wings. Students would line the aisle, singing in shadow tongue. Lyanna would perform the binding ritual. Grandmother Ash would officiate. And I would walk the aisle barefoot, in a dress made of obsidian feather fabric that shifted between solid and shadow. The night before the wedding, Leora knocked on my door. Can I come in? She asked hesitantly. Of course. She entered carrying something wrapped in silver cloth. I made you something. For tomorrow. You don't have to wear it if you don't want to. I'll understand, but I thought... She unwrapped the cloth, revealing a veil. But not like any veil I'd ever seen. This one was woven from shadow silk, so delicate it was almost invisible, threaded with tiny crystals that caught light like captured stars. It's beautiful, I breathed. I worked on it for 3 months, she said. Learning shadow weaving from Lyanna, practicing until my fingers bled, starting over every time it wasn't perfect. She held it out. I wanted to give you something for your wedding. Something to replace what I helped ruin. I took the veil carefully, feeling the magic woven into every thread. This wasn't just fabric. It was an apology, a promise, a bridge built from regret toward redemption. Thank you, I said, and my voice was thick with tears. I'll wear it, proudly. Leora's face crumpled with relief. Really? Really? She hugged me then, not tentative this time, but genuine, and I hugged her back with equal strength. I'm proud of you, I said. For the work you've done, the person you're becoming. You lit your shadow candle and kept it burning. That's not easy. I had a good example, she said. My sister kissed a beggar and became a queen. If she can do that, I can manage basic honesty. We both laughed, and it felt like old times, like before Cyprian, before betrayal, before everything got complicated. Just sisters, loving each other through the mess. The wedding day dawned clear and perfect. The blood moon would rise that evening, blessing the ceremony the same way it had blessed our mating. The gardens were transformed, shadow plants blooming in patterns that spelled blessings in the old tongue, floating lights drifting through the air like tame stars, the arch made from my burned wedding materials standing proud and strange and beautiful. Leanna helped me dress, her hands gentle as she arranged the obsidian feather gown and secured Leora's veil. You look like your grandmother, she said softly, like Alara on her own wedding day when she chose to leave the court for love. She smiled. But you got to stay. You got to have both, the love and the court. She would be so happy. I wish she could be here. She is, Leanna assured me. In you. In your voice when you sing. In your courage when you choose truth. In every shadow that answers your call. She's here. The procession music began. Not traditional wedding marches, but shadow songs, haunting and beautiful. I walked out to find the gardens packed with people. The entire court had turned out. All the students, even the newest ones. Members from other shadow-touched communities who'd heard about the academy and come to witness. And there, standing near the back, surprising and touching, several members of the Nightshade Pack. Not the elders. Not my mother. But pack members who'd been friends once, who'd supported my decision to leave, who'd come to celebrate despite potential consequences. I saw them and felt my eyes sting with tears. But then I saw Ronan standing under the Riftwing arch, and everything else faded. He wore formal robes of black and silver, his shadow crown gleaming, but his expression was soft and full of wonder as he watched me approach. You're beautiful, he sent through the bond. You're everything. How did I get this lucky? We both got lucky, I sent back. We found each other when we both needed finding. I walked the ash aisle barefoot as planned, feeling the texture change from smooth stone to soft earth to scattered petals. The 12 original students sang as I passed, their voices weaving a harmony that made shadows dance. When I reached the arch, Ronan took my hands, and the world narrowed to just us. Grandmother Ash stepped forward to officiate. We gather under shadow and moon to celebrate union, she said, her voice carrying through the gardens. Not the first union. These two are already bonded, already mated, already united in every way that matters. But love should be celebrated, choice should be honored, and joy should be shared. She turned to Ronan. Shadow King, speak your truth. Ronan squeezed my hands and began. Not the formal vows we'd written, but something from his heart. Isolde, 300 years I've existed, and I never knew what living felt like. Until you kissed me in that temple. You saw me at my worst, dressed as a beggar, crashing your wedding, offering darkness instead of light. And you chose me anyway. Not because you had to. Not because I forced you. But because you saw something in the darkness worth finding. His voice was thick with emotion. You saved my father. You built this academy. You teach students that shadow isn't something to fear, but something to balance. You turn everything you touch into something better than it was. And I am so grateful, so humbled, so absolutely honored that you chose to touch my life." He pulled something from his pocket, a ring carved from obsidian and inlaid with moonstone. This was my mother's. My father gave it to her when they mated. She wore it until the day she died, and then he carried it for 100 years, unable to let go. When he visited that last time, when you sang him free, this fell from his ash form. I think he wanted you to have it. He slipped it onto my finger and I felt the magic in it. Protection, blessing, love preserved through centuries. "I marry you, Isolde Knight," he said formally. "Not just as mate, not just as queen, but as partner, as equal, as the person who makes me want to be better than I am." Grandmother Ash nodded with satisfaction, then turned to me. "Eclipse Queen, speak your truth." I had prepared vows. Leanna had helped me write beautiful words about shadow and balance and destiny. But standing here, looking at Ronan's face, feeling 300 years of loneliness finally ending through our bond, I forgot every practiced word. "I was suffocating before I met you," I said. "Drowning in expectations and lies and trying to be someone I wasn't. And then I kissed a beggar." Several people in the crowd laughed, and suddenly I could breathe. I tightened my grip on his hands. "You gave me choice when everyone else gave me commands. You offered partnership when everyone else offered ownership. You saw me, really saw me, all the dark and difficult parts, and you didn't try to change me. You just made space for me to be myself." Through the bond, I felt his love flooding toward me, overwhelming and perfect. I don't know how to rule. I'm still learning my gifts. I make mistakes constantly. But with you, I'm not afraid of failing, because I know you'll help me stand back up. With you, I can be imperfect and still be enough. I pulled off my own ring, a simple band of silver I'd worn since childhood, and offered it to him. It was nothing compared to his mother's ring, just a piece of metal I'd bought with saved allowance when I was 12. But when I slipped it onto his finger, it transformed. The silver darkened to match his obsidian, and moonstone appeared inlaid in patterns that matched my ring exactly. Magic recognizing magic. Love recognizing love. "I marry you, Ronan Ashfall," I said. "Not because I have to. Not because the bond demands it, but because I want to. Because life without you would be dim and quiet and wrong. Because you're my partner in every way that matters. By shadow and moon, by choice and love, by the power vested in this lovelies. Don't forget to subscribe and follow for more tales like this. Because Isolde's story isn't over. Not by half. There's still the matter of the Shadow King who crawled back from the dead. The pack that will need to accept their new reality. The mating bite that will seal them forever. The academy they'll build for shadow-touched children. And the wedding that will rewrite every rule they ever knew. But those are stories for another time.